Hello, and welcome to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, Josh Carr, and with me today, I always bring the goods. I always bring these top-notch guests, and I got the one and only Billy Garratt-John. How are you?
I'm a top-notch guest, if I can even say it.
Thank you very much, guest. Mate. Yeah.
I know, and as you said on Twitter, what was it? The worst kept secret in Who Knew?
Oh yeah, we've just been chatting about this in the open for ages, and we mentioned it like 5 times in the holiday special. Which
it's been lovely, sort of subtle internet flirting, which is quite nice. Yeah.
Yes, well, it was nice that you got a little cameo warm up in the holiday special.
I know, and that was, I mean, what a baptism of fire. So it was my introduction. You know, that was.
It was a strange one, wasn't it?
And glory. It was great. I loved it.
Because of course we're here to talk about old Docky Who, old Doctor Who, that old joy that is. First, actually, what I'll start on. I know your thoughts because I watched the review of Death that you did of it, but we made some predictions in the holiday special that I cannot remember to save my life. But what did you think of Revolution of the Daleks?
I think one of them came true, which I think was something about Robinson being responsible for like bankrolling like the Dalek project, and they don't know what it is, but then the reconnaissance scout has come from GCHQ. But I think I said that it uploaded its schematic to like GCHQ's mainframe or something, and that didn't happen. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. It seemed like a sort of Daleks best of compilation moment, which was fantastic because I love beauty shots of Daleks and TARDISes, and this was just full of.
Don't we all?
I know, and it was great.
It really was beautiful, wasn't it?
There are only a few sort of letdowns for me, really. I mean, Graham being relegated to doing absolutely nothing in his swan song was a shame.
Yeah.
And also, it's a nitpick. But when Robinson says, "Take me to your leader," I was sort of like, what's going to happen here? Who's going to turn up?
This has come up quite a lot. I spoke about this with George.
Yeah.
Might as well while the plug is in front of me.
Why not?
I did a little special with Ace Creeper, George shared, last week. So go and take a listen to that. It's episode 6.5, if you will. So hour-long special where we talk about the episode, where I share my thoughts, George shares his thoughts, and then George just talks about the fact that he visited the set and met the cast and crew.
Just
Chris
casually
Chibnall
throws that in
gave
there.
him a nice little guided tour around the place, and you can just listen to me be incredibly jealous for an hour.
Do you want me to tell you when I went to the Doctor Who set as well?
Not really.
Okay.
No. When did you go to the Doctor Who set?
Oh, that was it was whenever they were filming Husbands of River Song. And because Matt
I love Husbands of River Song.
I can't stand it.
Matt, really?
It's just one of those specials that like I've got no energy in my soul to go back and ever watch it or think about it again.
I thought this, and I rewatched it on New Year's Eve, and I just fell in love with it. Like, I was sat at home ill, like just feeling really sorry for myself, and I just put a random selection of Doctor Who episodes. Actually, I put the Christmas Invasion on.
Excellent.
Inspired by yourself, which was your DVD collection pick last time you were on. But yeah, I loved it. It just warmed the cockles.
I have to say, one of the things that really got me about the Moffat era, especially in the Capaldi era, was their misuse of guest stars. And I mean, it kind of, the first time it hit me was Saran Jones in Time Heist, and just thinking, what a shame that she was misused that bad. I mean, like a fine part, but cast anybody in that role. Don't put Saran Jones in that part. But the one that really got me was Bill Bailey in The Doctor, the Widow, and the Wardrobe, and also in The Husband's River Song, Greg Davis and Matt Lucas. And I said in a video at the time when Matt and I reviewed The Husband's River Song that it's such a shame that was Matt Lucas's indelible mark on Doctor Who. That's all he would have done in the canon of like official Doctor Who. And then of course, you know, the next, you know, year rolls around and Nardol's suddenly the biggest thing in the world, you know. So maybe if I went back and watched it again, I'd look back on it with a slightly better disposition. But so Matt and I went to the TARDIS set with a bunch of other people. And we met Peter in the TARDIS set, and he was dressed in his beautiful red velvet, and we all stroked it, and he was, I'm sure, okay with that to a degree. Matt and I broke individually, I think, bits off the TARDIS console by accident, and had to stop ourselves from pocketing them as we went around the rest of the TARDIS. But it was great, you know, actually seeing things up close, because that. You know, I'm not a massive fan of Jodie's interior, but Peter's I adore, and the beautiful bookshelves and stuff. You actually look up close,
it's so gorgeous.
You know, he's got. I mean, it's weird. Like they're all BBC books, like or BBC publications, the magazines, and some of the shelves. So there's like BBC Amateur Photographer or BBC Good Food magazines, all stuffed into those. Bookshelves at the top, which was a bit like
so cool,
bit odd, but no, it was fabulous.
What a cool experience! If anyone wants to just drop me on the set, do it, please.
I tell you what, keep going,
please.
Man, keep going. I mean, all you need to do is get Chris Chibnall on, and then you'll be laughing.
Yeah,
you'll become the official. You'll become the official Doctor Who podcaster. Forget Doctor Who Clown Show. That's way back in the past. It's all about Who Knew. You know, you want that BBC
Who Knew
logo across the top. You know.
Well, we can dream. We can dream. We've gone on many tangents already.
We have.
I want to go right back where we always start at the very beginning. Where did Doctor Who start for you? Where did you get into it?
It was my dad, and I think I remember the date specifically, which was the 14th of November 1999, which was the day after Doctor Who Night 1999 went out, which was like a whole evening celebration of Doctor Who. It had little feature documentaries like, you know, the history of the programme, and then they had an A to Z of monsters called the Carnival of Monsters. They had little scientific features like how to live forever, like is regeneration actually possible, and how to build a TARDIS, like how a TARDIS might actually work on like a molecular level. You know, it was all fluff. It was just to pad out, you know, an evening of TV. But my dad was a huge fan of the show when he was a kid. Sort of John Pertwee, Tom Baker era. I think he can remember like flashes of Pat Troughton. But not an awful lot. I think my dad was born in '66, I think. So just as Pat took over. But, you know, around that time where you start to remember visuals from the television or smells and sights and sounds would have been around the time that Pat was sort of wrapping up. So he wanted to watch that evening of Doctor Who stuff on the 13th, but as a musician he had to go out and gig that night. And so my mum grabbed a blank VHS tape and, God bless her, stayed up and watched the whole thing. And because also it was rounded off with a screening of the last part of the first Dalek serial, and also I think the first TV broadcast of the TV movie since it went out in 1996. And obviously it had come out on VHS by that point, but that sort of bookended the night. And also there were lots of sketches in there. I mean, there was Matt Lucas and David Walliams did a series of sketches. Peter Davison turns up in one. Mark Gatiss is in there as well. And it was
I think I've seen a couple of those on YouTube.
They're all like available to watch on YouTube, I think. And I think the whole of Doctor Who Night is now available to watch on Daily Motion. If anyone gets in contact with Sam, with Dimmy on Twitter, she'll point you in the right direction. But yeah, so that was that, and my dad watched it the next day on the 14th, and I sort of must have toddled into the room as a 3.5, nearly 4-year-old, and it was there in front of me, and I just remember Autons smashing through shop windows from Spearhead, and my first nightmare actually was Doctor Who influenced, and it was in our old house. My old bedroom looked directly down the stairs which led to the front door, and it was a small house, and it was just, I just remember looking over my bed, or maybe a crib. Maybe I dreamt that I was in a crib. Maybe I was too old to be in a crib at the time. But I remember looking over the edge of my bed and seeing a fully boiler-suited Auton walking
Jesus
slowly.
Christ.
I know, walking slowly up the steps, and then going round the banister, down the landing, and then opening the bedroom door to my mum and dad's room, and then closing it. And then I think I've embellished that I saw 2 flashes behind the door, like he'd done them in. And I just remember waking up in sweats, and I just petrified. And you know, when a TV program, or just seeing like a snippet of a TV program, can have that sort of effect on on a child, I think it's sort of like destined to just be your thing. And yeah, from that point on, I was hooked. So I was brought up sort of, I guess, in the tail end of the Wilderness years. So there was still another like 5 years to go before there were any snifters of Doctor Who coming back. You know, that was still like a pie in the sky thing.
So that must have been so exciting.
Oh my God, yeah.
2004, 2005, when all of the announcements are coming out, and
that was the bizarre thing, though, because obviously I'm too young to be a part of like the fandom or whatever, and you know the online community, firstly is nowhere near like it is now, because there's no Twitter, and the racists are staying more quiet. But also, like when I first heard about Doctor Who coming back, it wasn't even from like a newspaper, it wasn't from like a family friend telling us or anything. It was Doctor Who Night 2004. Which I think that one was hosted by John Coleshaw, obviously dressed up as Tom. And at the end of it, as they're sort of wrapping up and kind of reflecting on Doctor Who's history, Colin Baker says, in his sort of like interview segment, he says, and of course now we know that the show is coming back, and it's being run by an incredible writer, producer in Russell T Davies. And I just turned to my mum and dad and went, is that actually happening? And they didn't know. You know, they weren't part of the fan community. You know, dad, you know, in his 20s and 30s, did that whole kind of kitsch, it was crap, but I like it and I respect it sci-fi thing. So like he had in his flat, he had an original Doctor Who and the Daleks movie poster. And so he wasn't like in with the fan base in that sort of way. It was just a distant memory for him that show existed. Yeah. And so he didn't know that it was coming back, and my mum wasn't plugged into any of that stuff. And so, my God, it was just like, is that true? Is it really true? Is Doctor Who actually coming back? And then it took a couple of months, or you know, maybe a year or whatever. And then the first thing I saw of the new series was that "Do you want to come with me?" trailer. Yeah. The original like, full length one.
This has come up like I think like 3 or 4 times now.
I've definitely heard it on the podcast before.
Everyone, because it's one of the first things I think I said back in the first one, like I had no idea what Doctor Who was in 2005. Like I was like 7 years old. It's like prime age. Like,
oh my God,
could not have been born at a more perfect time.
I know.
So yeah, I was like 7, and that was the first thing I saw. And I assume you're talking about the one that's got like the pitch down theme tune in the background.
Yeah, that brilliant version that was never used again. I love that version of the theme. It's great.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I really hope that gets a proper like official release one day. But I remember the first time I ever swore in front of my mum was when that trailer went out. And it was just that bit, because I was obviously, you know, I see the doors of the TARDIS behind Chris. Yeah. And I'm like, everyone be quiet, it's the Doctor Who trailer. How old am I? I'm probably about 7 or 8 years old. And
Yeah.
He you know, does the walking about and the walking and talking. They show clips from the series, and I'm just like, my jaw's hitting the floor, my eyes are bogging out of my head, because, you know, I've
Yeah.
got a Doctor Who now. Finally, I've got my own Doctor Who. And then that pull out of from the Dalek, the Metaltron's eye stalk, and it pulls back, and you see this brand new Dalek, and I just shouted, "Holy shit!" And it was just one of those things. My mum was just like, "Oh, whatever, you know, it doesn't really matter." She's not even going to tell me off. It's just like, you know, it's such an important moment for me as a kid, and then obviously later as a fan growing up, and it being real and it happening, that she really didn't mind that much. So that was that. And then it was just every Saturday night from Rose onwards was nacho night. We got nachos and sat down in front of the telly. I remember my dad being so disappointed because, again, he had to miss something Doctor Who that was new. So just like Doctor Who night in '99 before, he had to go out and play a gig. And I remember him leaving as the continuity started, and you see the shot of the Earth, and I can see him stood in the doorway of the front room with these puppy dog eyes looking at the screen like, I really want to be here watching this right now. Because, you know, it was an exciting moment for him, having been a fan as a kid, but also, you know, I've got new Doctor Who and he wants to experience that with me.
Yeah, like watching it with you for the first time. Yeah.
Exactly, because my parents and my grandparents, you know, they supported me hugely in becoming a fan and being a fan. You know, they taped episodes of Doctor Who off UK Gold for me. You know, they would buy me any little Doctor Who thing they could if they found it in the shop, because it wasn't easy to come across Doctor Who stuff back then. It wasn't. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's something that like people like me who were 2005 newbies, like, I just completely take it for granted. Because now I look at the shelves and I'm like, oh God, I remember these massive displays in like Woolworths and Toys R Us.
And I tell you what, that was just mind blowing. It was I could not get my head around it. I think that was one of the things that, I mean, it was slightly soured by the fact that now everybody was a Doctor Who fan. And it for me, for such a long time, it was my thing. You know, I played Doctor Who in the playground. The teachers at primary school looked at me and went, "Why is he pretending to be a Dalek? Surely he doesn't know what that actually is." You know, I finally, for at least, like, you know, 30 seconds that first Monday after Rose went out, I was popular because kids were coming up to me and saying, "Right, explain what the TARDIS is again." And it was really like an overnight thing. Like, by the time you hit Dalek, like, the whole nation, kids in primary schools all over the nation, were Doctor Who hotbeds, and it was like living through Dalek mania again. You know, everybody was coming into school with Doctor Who lunchboxes. But then if you went up to somebody and said, "Have you ever seen The Horns of Nimon?" You know, as a 10-year-old, that they're going to say, "I don't know, is that one of the new Scholastic Doctor Who books that's just come out?" And it's like, well, no, it's a really good episode of Doctor Who that you should watch. So, you know, there was a kind of yin and yang in that. I was so happy it was back and it was so exciting, and yet there's still that sort of distance that you're too into it, you know. But yeah, man, what a time to be alive. You know, I dream of the days where, you know, that show was on everybody's lips, you know, the next morning, or the next week. It's just
it's so cool, time. Wasn't it? So cool. Because like that was like the peak. Up until now, like the past couple of years has just gone. Obviously, I'm now doing this podcast and everything, and, you know, starting to talk to people on Twitter about it. I've tuned myself back in, but like the last time I was like at that peak of like being obsessed with Doctor Who was like at 2005 till about 2010, that golden age.
Yeah.
Obviously I still watched it. I watched it every single week, but it's just, you know, when it got to 2010, I was like 13, and, you know, you dip out of it a little bit, and, you know, you're not buying the toys anymore. And...
Yeah, I mean, like, I think I'd had too much investment in it in the years prior that I couldn't just, like, not be a fan. I couldn't not call myself a fan anymore. Like, I still watch every episode that I can on First Broadcast. Like, I literally, I think I've missed 3 episodes on First Broadcast since the show came back. And you know, in the Moffat era, it wasn't for the want of trying. No, I'm joking. It was just one of those things, you know, like as my dad grew up and, you know, got into music and, you know, for want of a better word, you know, girls and stuff and drinking and all the adult stuff that people do, you know, he started drifting away towards the end of Tom's run. So he watched a little bit of Peter, but by that time he's, you know, a young man, you know, he's probably, you know, in his like early 20s maybe. And didn't watch any of Colin. He only saw Sylve when he was working in Dubai in a hotel, playing in a restaurant in the hotel, and he was watching, like, I don't know if it was English or Arabic dubbed Sylvester McCoy episodes.
Wow.
On
I bet that's
on
an
TV.
experience.
Yeah, I mean, and he's always had his opinion soured of Sylve's performance skills from that experience, I think.
Well, while we're on the topic of Sylve,
yes,
right, I promised to give everyone little updates as to where I'm at with Classic Who. I've got a really exciting one today, because literally about 20 minutes before we started recording, I finished Remembrance of the Daleks for the first time.
Oh, wow. That is a watershed moment. I'm so happy I get to share that with you.
A classic.
So what were your preconceptions
good.
sort of heading in? Did you know it had that kind of weighty, you know, this is the episode that everybody shows their friends the first time, classic-wise?
I'd been building up to it because I'm a Dalek obsessive. And like, it's, other than when the show comes back, like series 13 and onwards, it'll be my last new TV Dalek story that I haven't seen. Obviously, it's not new; it's not like 30 years old. But it's my last classic Dalek story, and I was like, oh boy, I'm giddy, I'm excited. But yeah, it lived up to expectations.
It does, doesn't it?
Good.
There's so few stories now that I can kind of think of where, I mean, like that. I have used that as a prime example to like show people, like, classic Doctor Who isn't all boring black and white, you know, 12-part stories. You know, this is like the Michael Bay of classic Doctor Who.
It really is, isn't it?
It is.
It's so good.
It's like
so good.
You know, they've actually chucked a bit of money at that one, and you can see it. And you know, I love, as we'll find out later, I love practical effects, and I love, you know, one of the things I actually really like about that last couple of years is the move from film on location to videotape. Because I know that for some people, if they're not accustomed to seeing that change from being in the studio, stuff being shot on tape, to going on location and stuff being shot on film, it can be quite a jarring experience.
It is a bit jarring, yeah.
But I always found with those last few seasons, there's such a great consistency across the visuals that I've always preferred, you know, it's sort of my guilty Doctor Who admission that I've always preferred the look of videotape Doctor Who to stuff shot on film on location, and that episode in particular just exercises that look of the show from that era perfectly. That and Silver Nemesis, I think
it does look great.
Practical explosions and stuff. It just looks amazing.
Yeah. So I'm so close now.
I know.
Because I'm ploughing through as well. So like, because like I'm doing like a whole season every, like, because they're so much shorter as well. I'm doing a whole season like every 3 or 4 days.
God, so you're going to be done.
I'm
come the end of the
month. Probably by the next time I record, I'll be done.
Oh my God! And then you've got Big Finish.
Then I've got Big Finish. I've got a lot of missing episodes to catch up on, because I've just binged everything that's on BritBox.
Yeah.
I've got Fury from the Deep on Blu-ray to watch. I've got some other stuff to watch.
You got more than 30 years in the TARDIS per Harry's recommendation.
Yes,
last episode.
I do have that. I do have that left to watch. Oh, I'm excited for that. But yeah, I get to rewatch the TV movie as well, because I've not seen it for ages.
That's so great. I tell you what, I was telling my partner about this the other day, because I posted about it on Twitter, but I spotted Paul McGann in Sainsbury's.
Yes, and this is mad.
It was so
how
odd.
cool is that?
It was so odd because I mean, I know he lives in my town. Like I've bumped into him and seen him before, and it was just one of those things, though. You know, especially because of COVID and like not being able to go to conventions or be part of conventions and panels like Matt and I have been for like the last 2 years, which has been such a great experience. And you're literally just stood in the green room or sat in the green room, and David Banks, the cyber leader, just walks in, or there's Peter Purvis trying to get his iPad to work, or whatever. You know, it's crazy. But then when you're out in the wild and you're caught off guard by Doctor Who stuff, like even just seeing like the Doctor Who logo out of the corner of your eye in like a shop window, and you're like, hang on a minute, park that thought, I need to go and see what Target book that is.
This is exactly what I do. Yeah,
and it was just really
like
odd.
Constant radar.
It is, but it's like it's quite. I think that's what shows your level of like weird obsession over something, where you're just like, you know, if I see a Beatles logo with a drop T, or if I see, you know, an obscure version of the Pink Floyd logo that was used on posters in the 1960s, I'm just like, you know, laser focused vision. I need to like heat-seeking rocket. I need to see what's going on over there. And it was really odd. Like we were packing our stuff up. We never go to that supermarket. And I just said, well, we'll go for a walk. They've probably got some quite good vegan stuff up there because it's the posh end of the city. Yeah. So that was our like veganuary shop, and we went in and, you know, doing stuff. And we were just there at the checkout, and I said, Stella, don't react, but 2 tills down from us, can you see the really, really handsome guy with the blue mask on? And she was like, yeah. I said, that's Doctor Who. Doctor Who is right next to us. And it's the first time I've acknowledged that in that way. Like not going, it's TV and films Paul McGann. You know, it's the first time I've and I think
Doctor Who.
I think honestly, like podcasts like this and the community at large, and I genuinely think this current run with Jodie and Chris has instilled that wonder in me about Doctor Who again, that I'm not just being cynical. And I think that's actually noticeable in like the review of Death, like in the last year's worth of videos that we've made, maybe more. I feel like that wonder has been instilled in me again. And you know, when Paul McGann is there at the checkouts, it's not Paul McGann, it's Doctor Who.
Yeah,
like,
I feel like this as well. It was Jodie's era that kickstarted. It's quite strange because it's like, it's not like, I like it. It's not my favourite era. Like, I'm not obsessed with this era particularly more than any other. But there's just something about it that I remember when, like, I've not been so hyped for a Doctor Who episode than Woman Who Fell to Earth.
Yeah.
And now I'm hyped at like every single time. Like
I know.
I'm hyped to like points that I haven't been hyped since like 2008.
Honestly, yeah, it's been exactly the same for me. Like at university, I went to uni. I think the first episode I watched at university was Listen. That was like the first weekend when in my first year, and I left when Heaven Sent, Hell Bent happened. That was my last sort of like season of Doctor Who at uni, and from in that time period, my love for Doctor Who in its form at the time just went off a cliff, and I've realised now, I think a lot of that is down to the cynicism I see in a lot of Moffat stories. I feel like going back and watching them again, especially after watching Jodie's run, which is so full of positivity and warmth and fair play and kindness and you know, wide-eyed wonderment, that when I go back and I watch some of that Moffat stuff, some of it just seems like really quite I don't know what the right word is, but there's something to it that just has a bit of a nasty, unfair edge. Like the Doctor calling people
I get what you mean.
idiots, and it's not just like the Capaldi Doctor. Like, you know, the 11th Doctor might call somebody stupid or an idiot, and it's done with this cynicism and this sort of like slightly nasty streak that I have never really noticed before. But going back and watching it again, I was like, wow, like actually, maybe that's why I stopped liking it, and maybe that's why now watching Jodie, I'm just like, I just want to explore the universe with the Doctor now. You know, what
stands out for me, like revisiting, is I mean, the innuendos are heavy,
Yeah.
and it gets really tenuous by about like season 5. I don't really mind it. It's a little bit different. It's a bit like it's a different take on it. But by about midway through series 6, I'm like, I'm done with this now. Like, it's just constant innuendo, and the slapping. Why does everybody slap each other?
I know the physical
Why
violence.
is there all
in
this
it.
really weird obsession with just everyone's just getting hit all the time?
I know it's got.
By each other.
I wouldn't say it's got like a nasty streak, but there's like a mean-spirited nature to some of it.
Yeah,
And
I get
like,
what you mean. Yeah,
especially towards the end of my time at university, I had lost all sort of like enthusiasm for entering the TV industry, and I thought after the stuff that I'd been taught there and the way stuff had been taught, I was like, okay, this thing is not for me. And then couple that with the fact that Doctor Who at the time is totally not vibing with me, and I really don't enjoy it at that time. And then class and the whole classmates thing going on and all that stuff, and I was making very cynical content on my YouTube channel, which I've deleted now because it's not me anymore. But I really just lost my spark for the show, and I understand that Jodie's era isn't for everybody, but it utterly reignited that spark of childish glee with the show. And I honestly, whatever people might say about, and I say as well, about the quality of individual stories or how tight the writing may or may not be, I can't thank Chris Chibnall, Jodie Whittaker, and the production team working on the show now enough for reinstilling that sort of love and passion that I have for the show as it goes out week by week. I am an unapologetic fan of this era for that very reason. It just instilled such a positive influence in me.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I wanted to touch on there that you mentioned briefly is working in TV.
Yeah.
So you work in TV now. How much of that, and it may be not a lot at all, obviously I imagine it may have influenced you slightly. How much has Doctor Who influenced you wanting to work in TV?
It's everything.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
From the start. I've told people, even people that I work with, the day I see my name zoom up the credits of Doctor Who, I can retire, and I'll, even if I'm, a runner or whatever, not that that's like a lowly thing to aspire to, but, if I'm running on the show, if I'm a grip, if I'm in catering and helping people out, I don't care. The day I see my name zoom up the credits, I can retire and I can go and be a teacher or whatever. At one of the last conventions that Matt and I did, a fan of ours, James, who'll be listening, and I think submitted a question, came up to us and gave us a TARDIS, which I've got actually. You won't be able to see it, Josh, but it's just at the top of my. It's in my room, and at the start of last year, with everything going on as well, I put that TARDIS on my computer on my desk. And I've always had something Doctor Who related with me at my desk, whether it's an action figure that I've picked up from the Oxfam round the corner, because somebody got rid of a load of Doctor Who figures the other year. Like, oh my God, every DVD they owned, they got rid of everything. I've got this lovely Dead Planet Dalek now that, I only had one when I was younger. It was like, I've got 2 Dead Planet Daleks. It's amazing.
Nice.
And I've always had something Doctor Who related there, but I can't remember if it was a thing with, it was one of the harbingers of doom on the other side of the community, had basically had a pop at me and said that it was something about my being in television had swayed my judgment, and obviously I'm part of the ultra PC elite in television, all that kind of nonsense. And I just shared a photograph of the TARDIS that I have from James, blue tacked on top of my work computer, and I said, I keep this here as a reminder that is why I got into this industry, and that is what I want to aspire towards. Whether or not that happens, it's highly unlikely. Everybody wants to be the executive producer of Doctor Who. Matt and I will probably end up fighting to the death over it one day. In terms of who gets that interview or whatever. That won't even happen probably.
Yeah.
But I just have to remind myself that is what it's worth and that is what it's good for. And it did inspire me, and it inspires me every day. And I just that is always the ultimate goal, is to someday get a job on the show.
I think it must be the ultimate goal for all of us. Really.
Absolutely.
I'd do anything. I will do anything.
And he means that.
Anything.
I'm Chris. I'm looking at him now, and that face that he's got on now. He winked at the camera as well.
I mean, anything.
He's showing a bit of ankle now.
Oh, why? Oh, Mrs. Yeah. And then, as well as the TV stuff, obviously you've got Review of Death as well, which I'll admit I'm quite new to. But I've been going back and listening to it for you. It's great, by the way. I love it.
Thank you. Cheers.
How long have you been doing that for? Roughly?
I think it's been over 5 years now. Matt and I... everybody assumes that we were like childhood sweethearts. No, everybody assumes we were like, best mates at school. And we grew up together. But, I met him 5-6 years ago. I loved his stuff on YouTube. I used to religiously watch his action figure adventures as a young'un. And I just reached out to him one day because I was working on something for sixth form, and I interviewed him for this video project that I did. It was basically my excuse out of getting out of writing an essay. I was just like, can I just do like a 20-minute like documentary about Doctor Who? And they were like, yeah, fine. So I met him then, and then I think it was like the car ride home. I messaged him and I was just like, we should do something. And I think I came up with the name The Review of Death on that car ride back. And then within a month, maybe, we were back recording together and we did our first review, which was Death to the Daleks. But that concept came about because we wanted to give a bit of love to stories that we felt were kind of underrepresented. That was the initial concept of it. So we did Death to the Daleks. We did the Doctor Who and the Daleks, the TV movie. We did a couple of different stories. We've kind of battled out my favourite Doctor Who story of all time, which is The Curse of Peladon, with his, which is Pyramids of Mars. And over the years, it's sort of become more of a reactionary, we'll talk about Doctor Who kind of as and when, and do Q&As and stuff, and review the animations when they come out. But we did have another sort of frisson, kind of returning back to let's cherish the undermined corners of Doctor Who, and we did a couple of spin-offs. Yeah. So we did like some BBV stuff. We did Auton Sentinel. We did what was the other one we did? Oh, Downtime, which was great fun. We have a few different direct to video or direct to DVD spin-offs that we want to do at some point in the future. But yeah, that was the concept really. It was just, and actually it inspired my choice for the DVD section for today. Was part of that kind of, let's get back to what we used to do with the Review of Death. I'll pick something that's kind of often maligned and not well liked for that.
That again is the whole point of the DVD collection. And I just wanted to say as well, like, it does, I get what you mean, like when people say that it seems like you've been friends for so long, because it really does come across like you've known each other your entire lives.
Well, we are best mates, and
that's so nice.
We came together through our love of the show, and like my partner and I were just talking about it last night. Like, it's crazy that something like that can bring two people together, in a friendship, and then you can sort of express that friendship with other people online. Like, the amount of times we've been told at conventions that people fall asleep listening to our stuff, or they can't wait to watch another video, or it's really, really helped them through some really crap times. Like, that is why you do it, and it kind of does renew that sense of let's go and make some stuff, and that's really nice.
It does, and because I'm at the beginning of that journey.
Absolutely.
Like, it's so nice, like hearing stuff like that, and it's so cool that, like, literally 6 months ago, like if someone like you like liked my tweet, or like I remember when George Ace Creeper followed me, because I've watched his stuff for years. Like I remember some like really dark moments in my life where I'd be like, I'm going to put a George video on because it'll chill me out.
Mate, honestly,
and
yeah.
Now I'm like chatting to like people like you and people like George, and like it's so cool. It's so cool that I get to do this.
Honestly, the amount of times that I have wanted to say that to other content creators, like,
Yeah.
you know, podcasts, and I'm not really into Twitch streamers, but like there's two, like, if anybody ever if I get the opportunity to just share people that I love with people on any platform, I try to do it as much as possible. And that was why a lot of the stuff that I've done with Dark Dimension has been influenced by, shouting people out in the community who deserve a shout out, or, look at their work, all that kind of stuff. But like, there's a wrestling podcast I adore called OSW Review. 3 lads from Ireland basically review old school 90s wrestling pay-per-views. And they're so beautifully done. And I've always come across a moment, exactly like you, where it's actually quite spooky. And I'd love the opportunity to sort of, say to them one day, J, V1 and OOC, like, I have had some really terrible stuff happen to me over the last, like, not in the last sort of 12 months or anything, but, over the last couple of years. And I've logged on to YouTube, not expecting for one of their new videos to drop, and it's been there at the exact moment that I need it. It's so strange. Like, I can count 5 instances on my hand of crap things that have happened, and I've logged in, and it's like uploaded 20 minutes ago. Like, that's like 2 hours where I can lie in bed and just forget about all that stuff and just laugh and enjoy myself. They've been huge for me in much the same regard as you watching one of George's videos.
And it goes with everyone that I've had on, and probably everyone that I will have on. Yeah, like, because even if I've not watched them for years, someone out there has, and they've had that same effect. And
you're having that effect now, mate, because the podcast is so great, and it's so lovely. Shucks. But the thing is, the podcast is built on the community, and it's built on individuals in the community, and everybody has experiences like that. And it's sort of that flag in the ground where you can sort of go, listen to this. There's some really nice people. I'm not counting myself in this necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, there's some really well. I'm in this podcast now, but I'm like, there's some wonderful people out there who are just fantastic, and they're so creative, and that is the good side of the fandom. Like, when I was doing the charity live streams last year, and I was like crying on camera, and people were clipping it and putting it on Twitter, and I was like, shucks, I look quite handsome when I'm crying. I was like, it was weird, because I was like, that is the community. People who I think we ended up raising, like, I think it was like 600 or 700 quid for the 2 different charities, and it was just like, that is the community, and just sharing that positivity. It can do nothing but good. Some people will try and twist it, but we all know what's real. We all know the score. Yeah. And it's just such a great excuse to be positive about the best thing in our lives. It is one of the best things in our lives.
And that is what this podcast was built for. I just want, like, during lockdown 1, we're in the 3rd one. You're listening in the future. Good luck.
How's lockdown 7 going?
Yeah. During lockdown 1, that's when I started getting involved, because I started watching Doctor Who right from the very beginning in March. So, like, just before we went into lockdown, which is why I've been able to clear through it so quick. So I started, like, from an unearthly child, and I've worked a whole way through, and I just thought, maybe there's some people on Twitter that I could chat to about this. And now there's just this massive community of people that I get to chat to all the time. And I was just sat one day a couple of months ago thinking, like, some of these people have, like, amazing things to say, like, just great stories to tell, and they've done such cool things, or they just want to chat about Doctor Who, like, they're just normal people like me who want to chat about Doctor Who. And I just felt there's a lot of Doctor Who podcasts, but there's a little gap in the market there for chatting to these people. as well. But yeah, there's many more exciting guests to come. Okay. Many more. There's a big one coming.
Is this the email that you tweeted about not long ago?
I did tweet about this email.
Yeah. Maybe we can throw to a break and then you can tell me who it is.
We'll throw to a break. We'll throw to a break, and after the break, we're going to be taking a look at what story good old Billy here wants to put in the DVD collection. Hello, welcome back. Hope you had a lovely break listening to a nice bit of Doctor Who jazz there. Sorry, I went really like late night radio host then.
I saw you on one of those bar stools with a roll neck and one of those cigarette holders.
Oh yeah,
you know? Nice. Welcome to jazz.
Welcome to in Alan Partridge. Alan's Deep Bath.
Alan's Deep Bath. Don't fall asleep and slip under. There's some terrible things about that.
I've met Alan Partridge.
Did you?
Not Steve Coogan. I met Steve Coogan
in character.
As Alan in character. Yeah.
Was this one of his Waterstones signings, or was it on?
It was a Waterstones book
signing. Oh my god! What an absolute. Oh, treasure that, man. Treasure that.
Yeah. In Norwich as well.
I just couldn't get any better.
Couldn't get better. Yeah. It was really weird.
But the best.
It was very strange watching, like meeting a man, knowing that he's not that man, but he is that man.
Do you know, I'd feel the same if I ever met Carl Pilkington in real life. I'd kind of be like, because you want to probe Alan about every topic you can think of. And it's like, with Carl, it's like, what did you think of the weather today? No, but what did you really think of the weather today, Carl? You know, like...
Yeah, do the thing.
Do the thing.
Dance, monkey.
Go aha, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love these tangents. We're going on loads of tangents today. This is barely even a Doctor Who podcast.
The Tangent King.
Yes, the king of tangents. Let's slide on over to the shelf and take a little look at what old Billy wants to put in the DVD collection.
By the power of Grayskull.
The Unicorn and the Wasp or Love and Monsters?
Which one do you think I prefer?
No, I mean, which one do you want to watch first?
You are pulling my leg.
So, Billy. You've already teased it. You teased it a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, I think you might have outright said it in the holiday special.
But
have you changed?
So I think I mentioned Doctor Who Night in the holiday special. I think I said I was going to put that in. I decided not to do that because I was a bit iffy about Tom the Vance putting the Infinite Quest in.
Yeah, he's really dogged me in there.
And
he's put the Infinite Quest in.
Exactly.
And the Infinite Quest.
I tell you what,
which I enjoy, but
yeah, it's grand. It's grand.
Is it within the rules?
The thing is, I think, to be fair, thinking about it again, Tom has probably got more of a claim of putting that in than Harry does of putting more than 30 years in the TARDIS in.
Yeah,
because
to be fair, it is Tom's second go. It's his second submission.
And at least when we were talking, we did agree there's like a non-fiction section. But it's never been officially...
I've just stuck it on the shelf. I make the rules around here.
You do. You're the boss man.
It's in. You want to take it up with me? And Don't. I can't handle confrontation.
No, me neither. I'm terrified. But the thing that changed my mind is that I like the idea that, in theory, people listening to this podcast could just go on eBay now or Amazon and buy like the first 10 that are on the shelf that you've done. And I feel like I would be there'd be some major shithousery if I was to put Doctor Who Night, because it's not commercially available, no matter how many times I've begged Chris Allen at BBC Studios to put it on, like the Wilderness Years box set in person and in messages. But also, it's, I don't know, I'm kind of going back to that Review of Death thing, that I want to give love to a story that is unloved.
Yeah, that's what this is about, really. Because we're going to get the classics. Like, we're doing an episode a week.
Exactly.
All of the classics are going to get in. Like, we've already had like Bad Wolf Pint of the Ways and Terror of the Zygons. They're in. They're classics, obviously. But then you've got stories like, obviously you submitted Christmas Invasion. You've got
Rescue.
Thin Ice. The Rescue, The God Complex, which may not have found their way, like, in most people's, like, top 50 lists or whatever.
Exactly.
But they're still great stories. So, I want to hear it. And as always, I have no idea what you've picked.
So, the episode...
Because I love it. I love this. This just gets me so giddy. Go
and
on, what have you picked?
also, the best part is, you are so close to finishing now that you can weigh in on it. It's not like somebody's going to pick... I'm not going to be an arsehole and pick Ghostlight, because you're so close to getting close to that, you know. So the episode that I have picked to go on the DVD shelf, to go into the collection, is The Invasion of Time, the Tom Baker story. Because I wasn't expecting that. I feel like it laid the foundations for Doctor Who finales to come. It was the last episode, obviously in season 15, and it has the Sontarans in it. It's set on Gallifrey. The Doctor's acting out of sorts. There's, you know, obviously the kind of political power struggles that you would see on Gallifrey. Gallifrey is sort of that version of Gallifrey that nobody likes, with a bunch of blustery old white blokes complaining about their hips, like in Deadly Assassin. But the ensemble around it, like with the Castellan and, you know, like, okay, the Vardens are crap, but I think the Sontarans in it are quite effective. And, you know, Andred is fantastic. Barusa, there is an actual ensemble going on there. And one of my favourite moments in Doctor Who history is the cliffhanger with the Sontarans. I think it's the cliffhanger to part 4.
It is,
It's just amazing. And, you know,
it is
the
great.
way that music
it's got
ramps
great
up,
cliffhangers.
It's great. The way it sweeps into the opening theme. I think it's the closing theme, sorry. I think the Sontarans are really effective in it. Even though they are sort of wandering around chasing people up and down corridors, and they can't, you know, hit, you know, anything with their laser rifles, you know, their Sontaran guns. But you've got a companion leaving in that story. You know, you've got Leela going, and there's, you know, it's not like it's unearned. It's not like she suddenly just decides at the end, I'm not interested in doing this anymore. In much the same way with Victoria's departure in Fury from the Deep, which has been reappraised recently because of the animation. I think Doctor Who, in its classic form, isn't given the respect it deserves, actually, in a lot of respects, for how it writes its characters out. And, you know, okay, on the face of it, it's not obvious that this is the season finale, but we're on Gallifrey, it's got a companion leaving, you know, there's classic monsters. Tom Baker is acting, I mean, maybe he isn't even acting, but he's you know, off his nut, he's off his rocker. And you've just got that complete sidestep halfway through the story. Like, I mean, it was a last-minute replacement. The story was a last-minute replacement for it. I think it was a script by David Weir that fell through. And it was, you just get to that point where it's almost like the story is bored of the Vardens. And
it does feel like that, doesn't it?
It
And
does.
it's just like halfway through the story itself has become sentient and just gone. Should we get some potato boys in?
Honestly, it's like the show has been like going, okay, we've got 6 episodes to fill. Let's do this Varden thing. It's going out week after week, and then the show sees the viewing figures or it sees the response from the audience, and it's like, get those costumes out of the cupboard now.
Yeah.
And then the Sontarans just appear halfway through the story and they completely derail it. They completely change
I do love that. I do love that aspect. So just to weigh in, it's probably the first time. Obviously, I hadn't seen, more than 30 years in TARDIS.
Yeah.
It's the first time where I've sort of gone. This isn't a story I particularly enjoy.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's what the DVD collection is for. It's every story is someone's DVD collection pick, is someone's favourite, is someone's least favourite. That's the joy of Doctor Who. I get why you've put it in there.
Yeah.
I do get why you've put it in there, because when I think about it, I'm like, well, that's a great moment. That's a great moment, and that's a great moment. But that's just because you're saying it. If you say it to me out of this context, all I think about is those terrible TARDIS scenes. The running down corridors in an abandoned leisure centre.
I know.
And it's and it looked bad. And then then the Vardens, they're there.
They're there.
But Tom's great in this.
He is. And
Tom is great in it.
I completely and utterly believe that something has gone seriously wrong. Like signing that contract in front of the Vardens at the start of the story, but he's still doing the whole, what does he say? I never signed anything before I've read it, and that kind of stuff. But he's still joking around, but there's something really seriously wrong happening. And then, he comes in and invokes himself to be the Lord President of Gallifrey, and then the transduction barrier. That's the first time we, not the first time we hear about it, but it's one of the first times it's like effectively used as like a device on Gallifrey. And then you see the ships sort of rolling in, and you're like, there's something coming. And if it was Daleks, this story would be so fondly remembered.
It would have been mad, yeah.
It would have been like that idea that apparently the Daleks were supposed to turn up at the end of an episode of Blake 7, I think, the second or third episode in Terry Nation. It just didn't happen. And it's like, if the Daleks had turned up, this story, I don't think, would get half the crap that it gets. Although, to be fair, it's only a couple of seasons away from Destiny, and people give that episode a lot of, deserved, panning.
Flack.
Yeah. But I just love it. I love it. I don't even mind the TARDIS scenes, because I feel like we've been spoiled, especially in the 80s, where every corridor on board the TARDIS just looks like the console room. When you see, we're always going and seeing, what's Adric up to in his room? What does Nissa's room look like?
Yeah.
And it all looks the same. And even, going into Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, which was such an exciting idea for an episode, everything sort of looks the same. And I like the idea that there are parts of the TARDIS that look like an abandoned hospital, that look like a workshop in the middle of a dry dock somewhere. I like that, because it makes the TARDIS seem a lot more real. And like it is, there is an entire universe contained within the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Literally anything could be in there. That's just what that room decided to look like that day. Like the next day, if they went back, it could have been wood panelled with, incense, and all that kind of stuff. Or it could have looked like a manger or whatever, a barn. So it kind of exemplifies to me the grounded nature of a Doctor Who episode not being very good. But then actually, like you say, there's individual moments in there where you're like, actually, that's not bad. And this bit isn't too crap. But
yeah. Well, it's in.
And also, no one else is going to pick it, so I might as well.
No one else is going to pick it. Nah, that's a good one. I say it every week. Everyone is a good one, because I'm just a devoted fan who loves all of Doctor Who, whether it's bad or good.
Exactly. And I sincerely hope that somebody out there who hasn't watched it before gives it a crack.
Yeah.
The first half of it is crap, but there's enough stuff in there to propel you towards the good stuff.
Yeah.
Even though it's not that good, but it's still it's enough of a gear shift that you're like, okay, I can stand another 4 episodes of this. Or
Yeah.
the 3 episodes.
This is like my first taste of, because pretty much every episode that has been put in so far, I've really, really liked. And this is probably the first one where I've been a bit like, yeah, I quite like it. It's middling. I'm quite excited when a episode that I despise gets put in, because I'm going to be so angry.
Well, I want to know which...
This DVD collection lives in my head. It's not a physical thing. There isn't an actual shelf. This lives in my head.
There will be one day.
Oh, it will be. So
in the museum.
if you put an episode that I hate in, it just lives there in my head.
And I think people should think about that ahead of their choices, that you will ruin Josh's day, like, permanently, if you do that.
So don't pick the Web Planet.
Immediately. Next Web Planet.
Sorry, the Web Planet. Sorry. It had good intentions. It's just borderline unwatchable.
It's. I mean, I think the Invasion of Time is better than Web Planet.
Agreed.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think if that's your benchmark, then the Invasion of Time's pretty good.
Yeah, it is. It is. There's a lot in there to like, but it's in, and I like it. I like it.
Excellent.
And I'll get to pick what picture that I use for the little graphic.
I think it's got to be
the Sontarans
coming down the steps, holding them up.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
I always like thinking about that. Like when you picked Christmas Invasion, I was like, it's got to be that. It's got to be that photo shoot. It's the first time where I haven't gone to a bit of the episode. I was like, it's got to be that photo shoot.
Like screen capture. Yeah.
I was like, it's got to be. It has to be. So that's the DVD collection. Now we're gonna dip our toes in the burning hellfire that is Twitter.
For God's sake! Bloody Twitter!
Right. Twitter. Are you ready for a grilling?
I'm ready for a grilling.
Let's get grilled. We got a lot of questions. So I always say I'm going to speed run, and then it turns into about an hour and a half. But I am actually going to speed run because we've still got quite a lot to get through.
I know, and knowing us, tangents and whatnot. I'll stop talking, so we'll just go on another one.
No, that's fine. That's okay. Question number 1 is from long-term listener. He's been here. He's a day oneer. Jamie _season 7. Love Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
What's your favourite season of Doctor
Who? Season 7. I think because in much the same way that you hear the intention for series 11 with Jodie was to have the biggest reinvention of the show since it went to colour.
Yeah.
I think it's the bravest the show has been, really. I suppose turning it into a kitchen sink drama partially with Russell's years. And bringing in Jodie, obviously, as the first female Doctor. Those are huge moments. But I think to just say I'm bored of seeing, I think Derek Sherwin says, jellies wobbling around in space in his imitable way. I just think it was such a crazy thing to do. Sure, the viewing figures are dropping, but surely you want to give the show a bit more of a budget and build a better spaceship, or whatever. And so instead they say, no, we're going to film everything. If season 7 had all been shot on film like Spearhead, my God, how amazing would that have looked? Like one of those old ATV, shows like The Professionals or The Sweeney or whatever. It would have looked incredible. But I think it was so brave of them to do it, and I think that you've got a great cluster of stories there. Spearhead is probably, it's always hailed as one of the best. regeneration stories ever, and that's because it is.
Yeah.
And it's got the Autons in it, and John's great, and Liz is such a great companion, and you've got the unit family starting to come together. You've obviously got. I know that Ambassador's death isn't really looked upon as a particularly great story, but I really enjoy it.
It's
love
great.
It's like the first proper like James Bond Doctor Who, and it is eerie. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the music is so good.
It is, and you know, you've got all the helicopter stuff, and you've got it's really really good fun. I really enjoy that story, and obviously the cliffhanger, Van Leyden. What is the capital of Australia, and all that kind of stuff. It's just it's such a great story. And then obviously Inferno, you've got that in there.
Yeah. What's the other story? Why is my head just forgotten the other story that's
it's
in there?
Doctor Who and the Silurians, which as well is fantastic. That is, if only any showrunner these days could have a run of stories that consistently good for their opening season or any season, because it is just consistently great. It can. I think some people might think it's a bit worthy, and maybe it's trying to be a bit too Doctor Who for its own good. Yeah. But I just think that they're superb stories, and so season 7 has always been my sort of favourite season.
Great, nice one. We've got Thomas Vance. Tom the Vance Vance. I'm speedrunning all 4 of these questions because they're suitably Vance-esque.
And he's got 4 as well. Yeah. So,
which villain or monster exclusive to the Pertwee era most resembles Matt?
That's difficult. I'd say probably, I forget the name of the race, but one of the little purple dudes from Carnival of Monsters, because I think they've got fake eyebrows on, big fake eyebrows. Or just to be mean, I'd say Arcturus from Curse of Peladon.
Ah, how lovely!
Little shriveled head.
What did Paul McGann smell of?
Roses and oddly, battery acid.
Oh. Yeah. Nice. I would have imagined like musky oak and petrol. That's what I would have thought.
He wears he's one of those geezers that wears like diesel.
Yeah, but actual diesel.
Yeah. But actual diesel, yeah. He's into his classic cars, so he's probably he's got that kind of musky like whoa, I good on my hands sort of smell. Yeah.
My favourite question: skincare routine.
Skincare routine.
Your skin's looking lovely today, by the way.
Thank you, mate. The feature on Zoom that allows you to sort of like unblemish your face or blemish your face is great. I don't really have one. I put a little bit of eczema cream on, and I've got some nice stuff from Lush that I like to spritz on me. But the last time I actually had a proper spritz and a proper skincare routine was like the days leading up to and the morning of any convention that Matt and I do.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here, kids.
It's good manners. If you want to smell like Billy Garratt-John, you need to go down Lush and you need to get yourself some dirty body spray. That's what you need.
Dutty.
Dutty.
And have you got a response to the rumours detailing that you are Tom's older brother?
All I can say is ask your mother.
Dutty.
Dutty.
Right, that's them done. Obsessive Tesla has asked...
Hello, James.
That's James. Hello, James. That's good. You're the only person that I didn't have a name for, so that's good. I have some questions about the Authenticators. I just want to say, halfway through this question, if you haven't listened to the Authenticators, go and listen to the Authenticators. It's great. It's a hard word to say over and over again, because I stumbled then.
Yeah, whenever I write a document or send an email, I accidentally write the adjudicators most of the time. So that was one of the work in progress.
Another
things,
great
so
name.
I always get it wrong.
Another great name.
I know. Somebody else can have that.
So, whose idea was it? Why? When did you decide to do it? And basically, what's the history of your podcast? So, just give people a rundown of the Authenticators.
Okay, so the Authenticators is myself, my friend Jads, and producer Charlie. And basically, people send us their hot takes, and we always wanted to do a podcast together. My prerequisite was I want to be part of a podcast where I float in, record, put minimal effort in, and then reap all the glory. And I don't have to deal with any of the editing or anything like that, because that's sort of my responsibility with the Review of Death, and like also like handling the social media and stuff. And I love it, but I was like, I would just like something where I'm just like,
I'd love that as well,
and other people can stress about it. It's great. It's so great.
Because
we've only done one episode.
I am who knew. Like
exactly.
I am everything, and God, it's draining sometimes. But like when I'm having like midnight fights with GarageBand and just constantly making graphics all the time. But I'd like a little side hustle where I can just slide in, chat for a bit, dip out. Someone else does all the legwork.
Yeah, the Authenticators is literally my side hustle. It's like my little thing that I do sort of away from the Doctor Who stuff. And we've covered Doctor Who in the pilot episode, and we'll cover Doctor Who in the future. But it literally just came together. Jads and I have known each other. We used to work at work. It was a voluntary capacity. Neither of us were ever paid for the work that we put into this thing. But we used to work in inverted commas, and I used to train at a professional wrestling promotion in Gloucester. Called Pro Evolution Wrestling. It's now changed its name, but I was working there for free because I got training sessions and trained to be a professional wrestler while I was at university. And in the meantime, I was also writing like the blurbs for their programs. I was doing their social media. I was writing promos. But we, along with two other people, we actually started our own sister wrestling promotion. Called Riot House Promotions, and that's how we got to know each other, and we just clicked immediately, and we're very much on the same wavelength with nearly everything, and we just wanted to do a podcast for ages. But when we came to do the Authenticators, we didn't just want to do like, here's a bunch of kids talking about, oh, that Mandalorian episode was good that week, wasn't it? Because like they've got it's a co-production between Pharos Features and the Newplex, which is Jad's pop culture website, and they have their own podcast, and they do that on that show. And so I wanted something that had a bit of texture to it, and so we've created this whole backstory that we're basically working at this kind of Ministry of Truth type corporation, and the big wigs on floor 6 want to know what the authenticated truth should be that they put out to the mass public, and so people send us their hot takes, and we have to work out what the audited truth is. And so we've got this whole thing where we're picturing ourselves, in dishevelled in white shirts and sort of loose ties, and we're chain smoking our way in the basement of this government building with all these files building up next to us, and we're just like, right, what's the next one, and type this up and send it upstairs.
That's
in a
so
tube
great.
And shit,
And by the, can I just say that is like such a good basis for like an 80s Doctor Who story. That would be so good. Yeah. Like Colin and rocking up. That is
such a Colin, it's like Vengeance on Varos type thing.
Well, it's great. It's such a good podcast.
Thank you, mate.
There's only one episode out at the minute, isn't there?
Yeah, there's the pilot, which we did before the new year. That went out in December 2020. And obviously we've got plans to do, I think we're going to do like a series of 10 and then give it a rest, then do another series of 10.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with most podcasts, and you know this because you've banked episodes back, as a backlog. I think you get to the point where if you have a concept that just every episode you have to do an episode a week to catch up on the latest pop culture or review the next Doctor Who, or review the next Big Finish or whatever. I think you can really run out of steam and run out of momentum and run out of love.
Yeah.
And I love this idea so much, and so does Jordan, and so does Charlie, that we really, really want to do it for the long haul. And so 10 episodes and split it into seasons, and each season we can try something new. I mean, that was the reason we did the pilot, was to test the waters and see if we wanted to add anything or take anything away. So we're really fully committed to it, so we'll get some more out this year, definitely.
Great, nice one, happy days. Another former Who Knew alumni, old Peter Miles, Dalekian, the musician supreme, has said,
absolutely,
"Dear Billy,
yes,
what is your fave The Doctor Who theme? And is it mine? JK, but is it?
Yes, it is, Peter. It absolutely is. Peter's theme for the Dark Dimension is fantastic. It's actually a theme that he did for something else. And I was just scrolling through YouTube and I found it and I went, that is exactly what I heard when I wrote the opening scene of Dark Dimension, or readapted the opening scene of Dark Dimension. And it had that vibe, it had that tone. It was exactly what I was thinking of. So I just contacted him and I said, is it all right if I use this? And also he was like, yeah, of course, you know, and he was so forthcoming with ideas and just general communication that I just said, actually, could you do like a version of it where it crashes into the theme, into the sting, and then goes out? Like, so we've got an opening theme, and then I was like, can you do a closing theme as well? And then it all came together, and it was brilliant. So
he's obviously an utter genius.
He is. It's honestly,
baffles me.
I'm, you know, I've grown up around musicians my whole life, like with my dad and stuff, and I'm always just in awe of musicians who just capture what they're just supremely good at. And the thing with Peter is that he's supremely good at everything. Like all kinds of, you know, uses of different forms of instrumentation and his compositions and just the concepts and the tones and the textures, and it's just incredible. So obviously Peter is number one, but I'd say number two, I know everybody likes the Peter Howell theme, but I really don't like that version of the theme that much. I mean, obviously, any version of Delia's theme I think is great. I like the TV movie theme by John Debney. That is fantastic. And whenever Christmas rolls around and Elf comes on the telly, I always have to turn to my parents and go, the guy who did the music for this also did the music for the TV movie. Did you know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, John Debney.
Know that.
He's done loads of stuff, but Elf is probably, I mean, I don't know, it might not be the only big thing that he's known for. But he also did the TV movie, John Debney. Cool. And I mean, I think Sagan's is superb. It's probably my favourite of the new run. But I also do have a soft spot for, and it was only used once, but I have a soft spot for the Matt Smith Series 7 theme that was used for the Snowmen. Because in it there's this descending note, which is never used again. If you watch the titles for the Snowmen and then watch the titles for Series 7B stories, it disappears.
I think Peter mentioned this in the podcast that I did with him, because we went through, we sort of did like a quick rundown of like how many versions of the theme there are, like how there's like barely any for classic, and then there's just like so many weird variations for new.
I've got to listen back to that bit because I must have
I think he mentioned that, but I need to listen to that. I need to listen to that again. I need to watch that episode.
It's lovely.
Again. I've not watched it for donkeys years. So next question, another long-time listener, the lovely Cal at generic _tweeting, asked you a question in the quiz which you lost.
Oh yes, I don't remind me.
He's asked, classic question, it's great, but nice little twist. If you were given one trip in the TARDIS to any moment in history, but with the catch that you would be stuck there, where would you go? Now, when Cal tweeted this, I replied and said, you've possibly just given me and Billy license to talk about the Beatles for about an hour and a half.
Pretty much.
Because that's usually one of my go-to answers is the 60s, just anywhere in the 60s. Just drop me in.
I'd have to be quite selective with at what point I want to be growing up in the 60s, though.
This
my
is
problem is, if you drop me down now in like, or you know, if you drop me down now in like 1962, I would be growing up in, you know, I'd reach my 30s before we hit the 70s, and the 70s isn't a decade that I think anybody particularly wants to revisit, apart from the music and some of the telly and some of the films.
That's the thing.
And also then you have to live through the Thatcher government in the 80s.
Yeah, no thanks.
And then, and then by the time you get to the 90s, when the club culture comes around, you're too old to be going to those clubs. You're more likely to be running them.
See, you've got a point there.
So I think I would probably start. I'd probably start just after the war. I'd go back just after the war. And then I'd try and become one of those academics that writes about the Beatles, even though John certainly hated those people. I'd write about the Beatles from a position of an elder statesman and say that they are great for this country, because I've just finished reading an amazing book. I forget the name of the writer who did it, apologies, called 1, 2, 3, 4, The Beatles in Time.
I saw you tweet about this. I really want to read it.
It's superb. It's absolutely brilliant. But one of the things that I was really shocked by was how much of a kickback against the Beatles as a concept and as a culture that there was back in the 1960s. Mainly from conservatively minded individuals. And I was amazed by that. And I just thought, what you really need is somebody coming along who hasn't got an ulterior motive, somebody who isn't a politician. People were being told as politicians, write something into your speeches about the Beatles because it will get the young people on side, even if they knew nothing about them. That was the cultural impact they had. And I just feel like, if I'm going to grow up at that time and I want to be comfortable enough towards the end of the 60s that I can live well off, then I probably want to be dropped off just after the war, and fly the flag for the Beatles and try and ingratiate myself into their group and try and get up to the rooftop, because if I could make one trip and come back, I'd go and see the Beatles on top of the offices in Savile Row and watch the rooftop gig.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
100%.
That's a great answer. Mine's probably similar, I won't lie. Yeah.
The thing is, you don't want to go back and watch any of their gigs like, Candlestick Park or Shea Stadium, because you wouldn't be able to hear anything.
Yeah.
Because they'd be screaming so much, the PA system isn't going to be good enough for you to actually hear them play.
You want a small gig.
And they usually say, like, in interviews afterwards, they're like, we played shit for like 4 years. Like, by the time we broke America, we weren't playing well anymore. Because you couldn't hear each other. And it's like, you don't want to go and see the Beatles when they're playing crap. You want to see the Beatles when they're playing, fantastically. Like, they've got time. Exactly. Like, sit in a session when they're getting stoned and writing stuff for Sgt. Pepper and stuff like that. So, something like that would be cool.
We've got actually another slightly Beatles-themed question. So I'll do that one next. From Luke at Wonderful Butler.
Hello, Luke.
Great Twitter handle. Well, he's asked two questions. First one is, which James Bond actor would make the best Doctor?
Oh my God. I think probably Roger, because he's got enough of a twinkle in his eye that I feel like he could carry off the aristocratic, I could see him in like a long coat or like with a cravat or a hat. I couldn't see. I mean, he's a great actor, but just based off of his performance as James Bond, I couldn't see Timothy Dalton being particularly warm to his companions.
Yeah, Dalton would. Like, I feel like he could play every Doctor Who villain so well. Like, obviously,
he did.
Rassilon, but then he'd be a great Master. He'd be a great Davros. He'd be a great Davros. I think tend to agree there.
The only one.
I don't know. I'm not a massive Bond head, but I tend to agree. I reckon that's the only one. Stick Lazenby in. Well, we'd look after Lazenby. He's had a rough ride.
I mean, he can pop up and be like a fugitive Doctor, and everybody can forget about
all of them are pre-Hartnell Doctors anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
And if Doctor Who were to do a story about the Beatles, what period of their life should it focus on?
I have been beavering away at a script for like the last 3 years about Doctor Who meets the Beatles. And originally it was called I Buried Paul, so you can probably guess what era I want to write it around. And then it just became Doctor Who meets the Beatles, or the Beatles versus the Daleks, because I kind of thought it would be fun to write like a straight-laced modern day story about them.
Yeah.
But then also I'm kind of thinking Dalek Mania, Beatlemania. What if that collided as a film in the mid-60s, and you had like the Beatles running around London in black and white, and they were being chased after by Daleks, and they're fooling around with Daleks and jumping on them and, you know, pulling their things off and bits. But like, it would be so fun. So I think it would probably either be like Hard Day's Night era Beatles, or it would be like psychedelic Beatles, and you can do something cool with like mysticism and, you know, maybe the Maharishi came from somewhere else or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. It's a good answer. Actually, we've got another Beatles question. I'll whack this one in as well. We'll have a little Beatles section. Just very, very quickly.
Yes.
The wonderful Philip Hawkins at Ludex_Phil.
There he
I
is.
think that's how you say it. Yellow Submarine, the movie. Surreal masterpiece or garish nightmare?
Both, and that's why it's like my favourite cartoon ever.
Yeah, I would call it a garish masterpiece and a surreal nightmare.
It's a garish... Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
It's exactly what it is.
I cannot wait to show my kids it one day.
I really want to watch it again. I've not watched it for years.
It's brilliant. I was really lucky. I got to see a screening of it a couple of years ago, and they did like a limited re-release in cinemas.
Yeah.
And they only had it near me in Bath, which is about half an hour away, so it wasn't completely out of my way, but it was in a tiny, tiny cinema. Yeah. And they gave everybody like complimentary, like one night only exclusive Beatle merchandise that I've never seen anywhere else.
That's cool.
You got loads of like postcards and lenticular things and like a message from the Beatles in inverted commas that was written in kind of, you know, Pepperland gibberish and John Lennonisms and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was brilliant. But the problem with it is it's not a film to watch with a bunch of 40, 50, 60-year-olds in a cinema, because it's really wry, it tries to be funny, but it actually usually invokes complete stony-faced, that's not funniness from people, because it's a bit too wacky, it's a bit too 60s, it's a bit too out there, it's a bit too beat poetry kind of, you know, thing. The script is too good for its own good. So, but yeah, it's all of those things. It's everything, and
God, I love the Beatles films.
Yeah,
I love them. I need to revisit them.
They're all great. They're all great.
And I want to revisit Hard Day's Night now. I've got Classic Who under my belt. Like, I feel like I'm used to 60s stuff more now because I've watched so much Classic Who. I'm
not particularly fond of Help. I'm not a massive fan of that film. Yeah. Because it's, but then you know, it's like it's sort of more marijuana-induced haziness than Magical Mystery Tour. Oddly, like at least Magical Mystery Tour is surreal, but Help is just sort of, it's too grounded, but it's also trying to be surreal and slightly off kilter. And I've never vibed with it personally. But.
Yeah. Okay. We'll get off the Beatles now. Tangent City today.
And now I'm actually gonna rock through these answers now.
Okay. This is a question and a half. The wonderful Rich from Escape from Traken, who actually did a little... I think have you been interviewed by Escape from Traken?
Yeah, I did like a 10-question thing.
Yeah,
they were very accommodating for their promotion.
Yeah, it was really cool. Go check them out. They do like these great little spotlights with different creators.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah, really cool. I've done one. Billy's done one. Loads of cool people have done them. He said, "Hi Billy." This made me so excited when I read this. He said, "Long time listener, first time caller." It's like, that's great. That's such a podcast thing. It's the first time I've had that, and I loved it. What I want to know is, what is the best thing that has ever happened in Doctor Who in any medium?
Oh my God.
That's a question, isn't it?
That's like, what's the meaning of life? Jesus.
Is it the invasion of time?
Happened? Certainly not. Probably, I'll probably just be soppy and say probably just it coming back.
Yeah.
At a time when it was so unexpected, and it did come back and it made such a splash, and it's still here today. That's probably the best thing that's ever happened in Doctor Who.
I think Doctor Who is the best thing that's ever happened in Doctor Who.
that if you want to be nebulous about it, then that
Yeah,
would have been the answer I would have gone for.
Yeah.
I felt like I had to give like an answer.
Well, yeah, you did. It's my podcast. I can say what I like.
Exactly.
So, next question. Adam Martin, great hair. Adam Martin,
Great hair.
at Adam Martin actor. So, dear Billy, there's a lot of dear Billies and hi Billies. Everyone's greeting you today. I don't usually get that. I usually just get.
I'm very.
Answer the question, man.
Or you, yeah.
Yeah, everyone's being very kind.
He's being very kind to me because I'm gonna chat with him next week about Dark Dimension. So that's
oh, good. Well, he's not been very kind with this question.
Oh dear.
What was? Oh, I'm so glad he's asked this. What was going through your mind when you got kicked out of the Companion Academy?
Oh my god! Well, I cried, Adam. If you must know.
Really?
You must know.
Did you really?
It was heartbreaking, man. Yeah, I mean, it was such an exciting thing to do, and I was so over the moon that I got to do it. And I was 9 years old, there was some concessions to it. I got a nice goodie bag. I actually remember. I thought about that goodie bag for the first time in ages the other day. I think I got the purple vanilla release of one of the Series 1 DVDs. So it was Volume 4. So I think it was Parting of the Ways, Bad Wolf.
Yeah.
The last 3 episodes of Series 1 on DVD. I got some little Doctor Who key rings and like a CBBC key ring that my mum kept on her car fob for ages.
Yeah.
So that was nice, and also, I if any of the other fellow Companion Academy cadets are still listening or alive, I got from. I apologise that you maybe didn't get the same treatment. Clayton Hickman, very very kindly, because I was really upset about leaving. He gave me a signed copy of Doctor Who magazine, which was really really lovely of him, because I think he could sort of tell, like, I'd been a fan for the longest period out of anybody sort of there, like all the other kids had come on board with Chris, and I was sort of firing off lines about classic stories and stuff, and he would have probably noticed that. So yeah, he gave me a signed edition.
That's so sweet.
It was the front cover that preceded the debut of Series 2. So I think it was Him and Hers, or that was the front cover, and it was you could get 2 versions, one with Billy and one with David on the front cover.
That's so cool.
He signed that for me.
Oh, that's really nice. And he said, did you enjoy Totally Doctor Who both before and after you appeared?
I was on the first series, so
yeah.
I didn't actually watch it. The only episode I watched from the second series was the episode where the eventual winner from the Companion Academy, Louise, who oddly was also from Bristol and was taught by Matt's older brother Jonathan, which is just so odd. Yeah,
that's
it's
really weird.
Really strange. Really strange. But yeah, she ended up she won, and she won a day on the set. So she went to the I think it was the stuff that was shot for Daleks in Manhattan in the sewers with the pig slaves. And yeah, she met David, and I watched that episode when it went out. But I didn't watch it afterwards. But also, I love the fact that I was a part of it, and it's never been done since, and it had never been done before.
Yeah.
And to have been a part of that first series, and they only did 2. I'm really proud of it.
All jokes aside, it is cool, isn't it? Like,
yeah,
and it's such a cool, like, because I only found this out like just before we recorded the holiday special, because obviously we mentioned it there. And it was this weird slice of Doctor Who that I'd completely forgotten about, and
I know.
And then I remembered it, and I was like, oh my god, totally Doctor Who! What a program!
Yeah,
like. He was such a proper slice of my childhood. I loved it.
I know.
And knowing that you were on it is now very strange. Look at us now, eh? Look at us
now, all grown up.
So, last couple of questions.
Yep.
Another Who Knew alumni. Good old Big Willie style. William Carlyle, Mr. TARDIS, the boy.
There he is.
He's asked, Nicholas Briggs calls you, and he says, Billy. And he's put in brackets, I imagine he sounds like J. Jonah Jameson from the Spider-Man films. Billy!
Big cigar.
Yeah. We want you to write a Doctor Who audio drama for us, a 4-parter. And you can pick whichever Doctor you want with whichever companion you want. What duo do you pick?
I see the floodgates have opened since they've started recasting actors who are no longer with us, which I think was always going to happen, and I'm fine with it personally.
Yeah.
I can see why some people might not be, but you're going to have to get used to it. Not to sound like rude or mean or anything, but it's going to happen.
Yeah,
as soon as it started happening with stuff like Star Wars, it was going to happen to Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't do my favourite companion group because they're not a duo, which would have been the Fourth Doctor, Sarah and Harry, and obviously we've got that Cyberman story that was supposed to be the story that Revenge replaced. That's coming out soon. I'd probably go for something. I love the Sixth Doctor and Perry, and actually writing for Dark Dimension made me realise how much I like writing for the Sixth Doctor.
Yeah.
And writing Sixth Doctor dialogue. And also, Matt and I did a convention last year where we reviewed the season. We did Trial of a Time Lord.
Yeah.
Had a complete mind fart then. We did Trial of a Time Lord, and going back and watching that through, like, I love the Sixth Doctor and Perry. I think they're a great pairing. I think by the time you get round to, the Mysterious Planet and Mind Warp, which is obviously a completely just so tragic watching that and seeing how what happens to Perry. It's dreadful. It's really horrible. I love them. I think they're great. And for the first time in a long time, I watched the Sixth Doctor story, and I got to the end of Trial of a Time Lord, and I was making notes for the panel, and I was like, I'm really sad that I've now got X amount of time left with the Sixth Doctor. I love the Sixth Doctor. But instinctively, for some reason, when you asked me that question, I thought the Seventh Doctor and Mel, because they were, when I was a young kid and I was getting VHS cassettes out from the library with my mum on Friday afternoons after school, they only had Dragonfire, The Happiness Patrol,
which
and
I watched,
Paradise Towers,
and Dragonfire, which I watched for the first time today as well.
There you go. And I love them. They were one of my first. I mean, they really were my first proper Doctor companion pairing. So I'd probably go for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, we're gonna wrap up the Twitter questions there, and so sorry if we didn't get around to yours. There's a lot of questions, and
I tried not to go on tangents.
No, it's fine. We've got a lot
holding back.
Yeah, we've still got quite a lot to get through. So let's talk about the big thing that you're doing at the minute. Let's talk about Dark Dimension, because this is such a cool, exciting project. And because there's people who've always wanted to see Dark Dimension realised in different ways. And then there's people like me who, if I'm honest, I'd heard about it. I didn't really know a lot about it. I didn't know a lot about the story. I didn't know too much about all of the issues, in terms of it nearly getting made, not getting made. So for anyone listening at home that was in that position like me, what is Dark Dimension, and why are you now making it?
So Dark Dimension also known as Lost in the Dark Dimension, was an unmade Doctor Who special, which was going to be made in 1993 to commemorate the 30th anniversary. It was written by a gentleman called Adrian Rigglesford, and it was commissioned by BBC Enterprises. And the initial idea was they were going to do this direct-to-video spin-off.
Yeah.
This direct-to-video Doctor Who adventure. And then as production started to kind of ramp forward, Alan Yentob, who was I think he was the controller of BBC One at the time, he basically stepped forward and said, I would like to put some money into this as well. I would like to maybe get it shown on TV for like a night's event, like Doctor Who's Back sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it could go out on the anniversary night, for example. And then there was talk about doing like a limited cinema release and all sorts of stuff. But for a lot of different reasons, it didn't come together. And it was mainly down to the budget. Lots of stuff kept being culled from the script until it was left in a state and they went, right, well, we can do this now. And then certain funding just didn't come through, or certain people got cold feet about it. There's an absolutely... I really, really encourage everybody who's interested in the Dark Dimension to get a PDF copy of a fanzine by Doctor Who historian Richard Bignell called Nothing at the End of the Lane.
Yes.
There's a PDF. You can download it. I think you pay maybe £3 for it or something, but it's so worth it. There's so many interesting articles in there. But it's got the full details about the history of the Dark Dimension, and interviews with people who were involved in it at like a production level and a managerial level and stuff and budgetary level. And so I've always been fascinated by it. I've always been fascinated by Doctor Who's that didn't quite happen. Movies and so on, that were never made. And the Dark Dimension to me stood out because there's not an awful lot known about it, and you know, it was so close to happening and then didn't happen, which is somehow more interesting than something like Doctor Who and the Cricket Men, or the final game, which would have been Roger Delgado's write-off out of the series.
Yeah, because it feels like it was so far away from
exactly.
It
was
made, like it did. It was more just like an idea, but this was
exactly
like so far gone. It's
you know,
similar.
They started doing.
Yeah, it makes me. I always like link this with Sharda, because obviously Sharda started filming, and then it surprises me that this doesn't have like that. Obviously, people have always wanted to see it, but like I'd always heard about Sharda. But the Dark Dimension's not mentioned in that same vein, despite it being a massive concept, like massive multi-Doctor story. But yeah, so the actual so going from like the dawn of it, when did you decide to do this, and why? Obviously, I know that you're interested in it. But what made you sit down and think, actually, I am going to make this? Where was that turning point?
Well, I've been working on a Doctor Who writing project. It was going to be like a blog, and I'd update it with chapters. And I think I got like 3 chapters in, and I'd written a 4th, and I just ran out of steam. I'd sort of written myself into a concept that I didn't really sustain, and I lost momentum, and I fell out of love with it. And then I didn't want to give up, because it was supposed to be an excuse for me to improve my writing, and get feedback and stuff. And it was prose. And then I thought, well, you know, what if I had a look at a script that already existed, and sort of, you know, so I'm not working with nothing. I've got building blocks at least, and I can sort of play loose and fast with it. And it's not like there are any plans for this to be done officially. You know, the Dark Dimension. You know, so many people don't even know about it, and it's kind of often maligned in the fan community. And I think you know, when I started the project, I was probably, you know, quite unfair on it, without really, you know, thinking about the people behind it who wrote it or whatever. Because it's a project, it was somebody's passion project, you know. And so yeah, I decided to kind of tweet about my experiences reading through it and trying to rewrite parts of it. And then I just got on a roll, and within a fortnight I'd finished the first draft, and I kind of thought it would be a shame to leave it on my hard drive. And as I was writing stuff, I was sort of thinking, oh, that person would be good for that part, or I can't wait to do that Dalek scene. Oh no, wait, I'm not doing this as an audio story, or maybe I could. Hang on.
Yeah.
Maybe I actually could. This is lockdown after all. Everybody's going to be doing nothing. People are going to be free. Also, not in like a cynical way at all, but I kind of thought, I've got a captive audience here. I can entertain people during the lockdown. That's all it was really meant to be, was just a distraction from everything that was going on in the first lockdown. So from May, I think 2020, up until actually yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before?
I think you tweeted about it on Sunday, which would
Sunday,
have been like the 10th, something like that.
Yeah, it was the 10th.
10th of Jan.
10th,
yeah, we're recording on the 12th. So
I think it was the 25th of May last year to the 10th of January 2021. I've been working on it either intermittently or flat out for that time period.
Yeah.
And and now I've got all 4 parts sat on my computer, and I can't believe it. Like I said to my partner the other day, because she's actually in it. She has a small role in it.
Yeah.
And she was actually in New Zealand for 5 months during the pandemic. She went over for a wedding, which didn't happen. Then they closed the borders. She couldn't come back, so we didn't see each other for 5 months.
Right.
And I did Dark Dimension to keep me sane while she was away, basically.
Yeah.
And I gave her a part in it just for a laugh, and she did it, and she's great in it. But it was, I turned to her the other day and I just said, it's done. I finished it. And she went, well, you finished the notes for the music for Luke, who was the amazing composer who's doing the music for Dark Dimension. Yeah. And I said, no, like, it's part 4's done. I finished part 4. It's rendered. And we just, I was just like, oh my God, actually, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a long journey, but it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm so excited and extremely nervous actually for people to finally listen to it. I mean, you've listened to it, and I've said it to a few people.
Yeah,
but,
I have podcasters' privileges. I've listened to part 1, which obviously, I'm not giving out spoilers or anything. I don't want to go into too much detail because I want everyone to go out and enjoy it for themselves. But God, I loved it, and it was like, because it's, especially now I'm coming to like the end of this classic Who journey, which has been somewhat intense but so fun. So to get like this story with, all of these doctors that I've been watching for months and months and months and hours on end. And it feels like, because I'm excited that it's lining up pretty well as well, because probably by the time Dark Dimension comes out, I'm gonna be finished. So it is literally that perfect gap, like perfect thing to bridge the gap between me finishing Classic Who and then watching the TV movie. And then I might do like a full New Who rewatch. It was fireworks.
Oh, that's good.
It was fireworks.
They're celebrating Dark Dimension coming out next Saturday.
They are. They are. That's what they're doing. But yeah, my God, it's so good. Amazing cast. Like, there's so many cool people in it. Again, there's some people who've been on the podcast that are in it. Like, obviously William's in it, and Sophie Arles is in it. Yeah,
Sophie's in it.
Yeah, and the voice cast are just unreal as well. Like, such good performances.
And it gets like there's a few performances coming up in the later parts. Everybody's fantastic throughout, but it was quite a late decision. It was a decision quite late in the day to split it into 4 parts, but that means there's just more stuff to come that I'm excited for people to kind of experience.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great that it's split into 4, because that part 1 ending was, obviously, again, no spoilers, but it's just it felt so much like Classic Who, and it feels like actual Classic Who, and that's because
Oh wow, thank you. That's a really, really lovely compliment.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
because you've put that love and care and attention into it, and you've given it the fan touch, like and it.
I think that can be quite dangerous at times.
Yeah,
like,
it can.
Yeah,
It definitely can.
it can be a bit self-indulgent, I think. But because it was an anniversary special and it was supposed to be a celebration, I think that's one of the things that if I had to criticize the original script for anything, and I wouldn't say it's criticism, but it's just one thing reading it back is it doesn't really have a great celebratory kind of like vibe to it.
Yeah.
It's but that's probably not what Adrian Rigglesford was going for when he wrote it, and that's great because that's what he did, and it is a good script. It is a good script at the end of the day, and there's so many interesting things in it, and the way that the Daleks and the Cybermen and other monsters sort of come into the fold is great.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that kind of Five Doctors swashbuckling,
Yeah,
thing.
it really doesn't. And again, that's a testament to you, because I know what I would be like doing something like this, and the temptation is fan service, fan service, fan service, fan service, fan service, and you just want to fill it with references and like that. This just like that's what my head would do. Like I would be like, oh, I could reference, part 3 of the Horns of Nimon, and then I can reference this like unmade Big Finish story from 1999, and then I can reference this comic from 1972. But like it's just what Doctor Who fans' brains do. We just link everything into this big ball of wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
Totally.
But it is again a testament to you that it doesn't do that. You have those fan moments that you need in an anniversary special, because it's an anniversary special. Like you said, it needs to be a celebration of what Doctor Who is. But yeah, it's not. It doesn't sit too long in those fan moments, and the plot is centre stage, and the story, which is, obviously I've only heard part 1, and it's exciting because I don't know anything about the Dark Dimension, so it is an actual cliffhanger for me. Like, I've been really wanting to listen to 2, 3, and 4 for ages now, but it's a great story. Like, it's not a great. Well, it is great, but I'm saying, like, I'm not saying it's great because it's indulging in fan stuff and stuff. It's literally, to the basics, it is a great story. So well in, mate.
Yeah, and that is down to Adrian's sort of original script, because
of course, yeah.
I mean, I've adapted it. I've not rewritten or rebuilt the wheel or whatever.
Oh yeah, of course.
I couldn't do that, but I don't really know how to think of it in the context of the original. It's probably not right to compare it to the original, because there are a lot of differences in there. So, for example, the Brigadier isn't in it. He was quite a central part of the original script. Ace is introduced to the story in a completely different way, and the Brigadier's son Alex also doesn't play a part in it at all. And yeah, there's other things that divert from the original, but ultimately, if you were to look at it as like a framework, and you were to they go from A, B, C, D, E, F, G, they go from location to location and scene to scene. It's basically exactly the same, but scenes have been restructured, things have been moved around, chopped out, swapped about. I can't say that it's my work, even though I've rewritten the entire thing top to bottom. There are some scenes that do borrow a lot of dialogue from the original, like straight, but the majority of it is my own dialogue. The majority of it is my own shifting of scenes around and settings and
I
direction,
get what you're
obviously.
saying. Because obviously it's an adaptation at the end of the day, so you it's not like all from your brain, but
Yeah,
you should
exactly.
be so proud of what you've been able to adapt it into.
Thank you, mate. I really
I
appreciate
think
that.
the people, obviously I don't know if people that originally were working on it have listened to it or have listened to any of it.
No, I've
But I
actually had
imagine
zero
that-
contacts from anyone who worked on like the original.
I
know
yeah.
I know that people are aware of it, but I haven't actually had any contact
I
from
imagine
anybody that I'm aware of anyway.
Yeah, I imagine that if they were to hear it, they would adore it just as much as I do.
I hope so. I mean,
Yeah.
genuinely, and I have to say this because it's true, and you know, I do feel bad about some of the stuff I may have said about it initially, but it's only being done for the love of it. In fact, as of right now, I'm actually having a conversation with the BBC's legal team over it. So I sincerely hope by the time that you listen to this that I am still allowed to put it out. But at the moment, I'm having a conversation with the BBC's legal team because they've obviously been made aware of it, and they just want to check that the script hasn't come into my possession through nefarious means.
Yeah.
And I've just been very honest and said, look, it's available to access online. If you type in Doctor Who Dark Dimension script, the first result on Google is a Reddit page that's been up for 4 years with a Google Drive that links directly to the script, which anybody can read and parrot and download. And I've seen it around for, you know, probably longer than that,
Donkeys years, yeah.
4 year period. Yeah. But it's only being done for the love of it. Not a penny is being made from it. My dad and I have been working like dogs on this thing. And it's been such a joy to work on, and I'm really happy that, you know, just being able to send it to you and being able to send it to other members of the cast and writing press releases. Like, I've never done that before. This has been a massive learning curve for me. I feel like to a degree I may have learnt to run before I can walk in some respects, but that's just a learning experience. And I figured with stuff like the promotion on social media, with stuff that is in the works I haven't spoken about yet, which will hopefully will be coming out or would have already come out by the time this podcast goes out. It has been a case of, if you're going to do it properly. You know, I don't want people to think that I'm getting delusions of grandeur by writing a press release and sending it out to publications or putting out an open call to podcasts and publications saying, like, if you want to cover it, want to do an interview, I'm here. I just figure if this is what I want to do in my life, if I want to be a creative, if I want to write, if I want to be a producer, if I want to direct, I've got to do stuff like this, you know. And it's been so exciting and so thrilling to do it. You've got to do it properly if you're going to do it at all.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's like me and Peter were saying on his episode of a couple of episodes back, the quality of stuff that is coming out from fans is like, you know, it's better than I've ever seen, and it's stuff that, you know, some of the things that I see people write and I see people create, like audio dramas, and it's like that quality is, you know, I prefer some of that stuff to some actual, you know, Doctor Who TV stories, and that's how good some of these people are and how talented. And it's great to have, obviously you see like individual pieces of brilliance, and then you see a project like this which has got so many people involved, you know, with you at the centre of it, you know, pulling all of these strings. So yeah, you do, like, it makes so much sense if you're putting something out there that, obviously I know you can't say this due to you being a very modest gentleman, but like, if you're putting something out there that is that good, why not, like, if it's, you know, Big Finish or like TV levels of quality, why not treat it like that? You know, you got to.
I've worked on it for too long, and I've put too much of myself into it, and I've, you know, blood, sweat and tears and all that kind of, you know, hyperbolic stuff. I've put too much of that into it, and it's been gestating for so long that if I didn't do this sort of stuff, like talking to you on the podcast, which is a lovely excuse to talk to you and also to just kind of generally have a chat about Doctor Who, but if I didn't take it to this level, it would be a wasted opportunity. And you know, on a I don't want to say a cynical level, because ultimately it's probably makes more sense than doing it just for the love of it. I would use this as a calling card in the future.
Of
You know,
course.
I'd go to Big Finish, or I'd go to, if I, you know, the plan in the next like year or so might be that I move to New Zealand. So this would be like a calling card where I can walk in somewhere and say, I did this all on my own, off my own back. I contacted these publications. I've been receiving, without spoiling too much, over the last couple of weeks, I've been receiving storyboards, and I've been receiving all sorts of really, really cool stuff, demos. I'll send some of it to you, Josh. But I've been receiving some stuff, and it's been like spinning plates, and it has been stressful at times. But it feels like you have to build those calluses up in order to kind of show your wares to somebody. And go like, I have been responsible for basically running this entire production, for the graphics, in terms of the, you know, the main stuff, like obviously the beautiful artwork that is still rolling out on the Faris Features account that's been done by some incredible people, far more talented than me in terms of like photo manipulation and shit like that. But I need now, as I get older, even though it is a Doctor Who fan project, I need to be able to have something as a calling card and walk into somewhere and go, I've done this. Would you consider me for something based on the perceived quality of this? You know,
that's great. And that's where I stand with like the podcast as well. And most people stand with, and should stand with fan projects. You shouldn't, like, if you're doing something that's like a fan project, this is just a little message to people out there. But if you're making some kind of fan project, you know, treat it like that. And
absolutely,
you know, you can use that. We live in a world where, you know, if you can create that stuff, that is a talent that someone somewhere will think, you know, I could give that person a job because of that, and they will
value it, because you know, exactly. Like I've from you know, God, you know, being on YouTube, I've been on YouTube on and off in various different guises since I was about 10, and I'm 24 years old now, and I've seen people come up through YouTube in the Doctor Who community, but also in the wider sort of community, that have gone on to do unbelievable things, that they work on the show or they work in passages of the show. I you know, the Fitzroy Tavern thing was a bit of a meme on Twitter for a while, because
it was
Philip Morris. And I was very proud to have signal boosted that. But you know, you do have to think that I'm not classing myself in this, but there are certainly people that I have worked with and I see online that I would absolutely say this applies to. The people that are running the show now, and I think you've said this before, I think it was the episode you did with Peter where you said if you gathered enough of these people, like, you know, creatives in the Doctor Who community together in a room, you could make a full series of Doctor Who. It could just happen. But I feel like, you know, there is going to come a point where there is a changing of the guard, where, you know, some people that have been working on various projects in various avenues of Doctor Who will move on, and there will be a void. And the best part of this community is that there are countless individuals, writers, graphic designers, directors, musicians, actors, that will be ready to step into that spot if from the moment somebody says go. And I'm so incredibly proud of the community for you know, doing that sort of stuff. And that is, you know, the best parts of this community are the people who are creative and share that creativity. You know, and I am so excited to see people, you know, God, like, you know, Jonathan Carley, he kept that quiet. He did. He plays 2 doctors in Dark Dimension, and he had already recorded his stuff as the War Doctor and didn't tell anyone. And you know, me now, I think, you know, the kind of cynical publicity part of my brain goes, what, who? We've got an actual official canonical actor to play a canonical Doctor in the thing, you know, and that's exciting. But you know, it's happening. It's happening slowly, but it is happening. These people that deserve these spots, you know, are getting them slowly. And you know, if you're listening to this and you're creative in the industry, whether it's Doctor Who related or the industry as a whole, your time will come. It's just a matter of plugging away at it and not being discouraged. If you make an audio drama that you're not happy with, what did you get wrong? I would have been somebody years ago who would have sniffed at that and thought, I can't be bothered to put that level of effort in. But I don't know if it's just from working in the industry or from taking this project particularly seriously, that I'm like laser focused. The next thing that I do is going to be better than Dark Dimension. And there are tentative plans to work on Doctor Who projects or Doctor Who related projects in audio form through this year.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Would you do this kind of thing again?
I would not do another adaptation.
Yeah.
I owe it to myself, and I also owe it to every other person who's written something that I could adapt to not tarnish their their original script. But I absolutely would love to do something original. There are plans. There are tentative stories that were actually written years ago for other projects that exist. Scripts exist, and they can be repurposed very easily and edited. And then it would just be a case of just getting people around and doing it. But I would like to do it in a slightly different fashion. I wouldn't like to do everything over Zoom. I would like to do stuff face to face. I would like to direct actors in a professional studio setting, or as close as we can get to that, doing it for free. And I've also got another idea which I've just been shooting with Matt, actually. Not shooting like physically, but like shooting ideas around. Which is I won't say anything about it, but it would be Doctor Who related. And it's always those things, like the first thing I do is I get an idea and I'm like, what does the logo look like? I know that's not important, but I want to know what the artwork will look like. I want to know what the graphics will be. So I've been messing around with some designs and stuff, and if that ever happens, that would be really cool.
Same. When I came up with the idea for the podcast, the first thing I did was I was like, if I make a logo and I like it, I might do this.
But that's the thing. And honestly, I'll say this is the best piece of advice that I gained from doing Dark Dimension. From like a slothy perspective, I would get through a portion of the script and I'd be like, I don't really want to write this scene. This is getting boring. What would I want to do next? I want to do a Dalek scene. I want to do a scene with some Dalek dialogue. And so the next scene that I do, I just move on. I just do a Dalek scene. I'd be like, that will pop up at some point. Or it could be the next scene, but I just need to get this Dalek out of my head that's screaming at me.
Yeah.
That's screaming this very specific dialogue at me. I will wake up at like, I've got notes and notes and notes on my phone of just scenes and random bits of dialogue. Like, what's the one that I wrote the other day? A Dalek shouting, "My functioning is unimpaired. Explain the correlation." And just repeating stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
I don't know where that's going to go. But
how fun was it being the Daleks and the Cybermen?
I loved it. I am not going to be taking anything away from Nicholas Briggs at this point. I think I'm quite a good cyber leader, and I think I'm quite a good cyber lieutenant.
Excellent.
Excellent. I think I'm all right at that. And my dad and I, we absolutely drained our enthusiasm and energy for this project by trying to get me to sound like a Remembrance Dalek. Yeah. Because I didn't just want Grady new series Daleks. I wanted barky, slightly overly modulated Imperial Daleks.
Yeah.
And we tried everything. We actually got to the point of trying different microphones just to see what the attack in the register in my voice would sound like, certain plosive sounds or stuff like that. And so we ended up using this condenser mic really, really close to my face, and we put it through some filters and some like physical analog equipment as well, and ended up with the Dalek voices that you hear in the final product, and
which are great.
I'm happy with them. I mean, I know what to do better next for my Dalek voices, but that was really good fun. I've always wanted to play a monster in Doctor Who, and I play a couple more in the rest of the story.
Great. Well, the Dark Dimension comes out. Am I right in saying the 23rd?
Yeah. So
I knew it was one of the two. I completely
Yeah.
forgot then. My mind just blanked.
Part one
23rd.
is going to premiere on YouTube on the 23rd of January. And by premiere, I mean at 7 o'clock, there will be a YouTube premiere, like the live stream
Oh,
thing.
nice.
And so people can enjoy it live together in the chat and stuff.
Yeah.
But just like and I'm really chuffed with this. I was racking my brains. How am I going to release this thing? And when I settled on it doing parts, I was like, I'm going to do this properly. So, I mean, this just gives people an excuse to just record it and parrot it once it's done. But once it's finished on Saturday, on that first Saturday, it goes away from YouTube. And I'm now considering whether or not I upload a streamable version that people can catch up with during the week, or I do another like one-off repeat like halfway through the week, like classic scheduling. Because I kind of feel like that might make it a bit more of a special event in that kind of way. But I'm still trying to work out what I do specifically in terms of its release. But part one, 7 o'clock, Saturday the 23rd of January on YouTube.
Do not miss it, because it's going to be fantastic.
Nicely done.
I didn't even mean that. I was like, that sounds familiar.
There was a pause there.
Happened.
I was like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, no, I was like, I'm going to say fantastic, but yeah, that feels like I'm stealing. This is a very long episode, but it's all good stuff, and I'm excited about it. But we've got one last little trip, and we've got a little corridor to go down, and it's the corridor of fame.
Have you ever been limited by who you were before?
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back.
Our lives are different to anybody else's. That's the exciting part.
Sarah Jane?
Do I have the right?
Some people's small, beautiful events is what life is all about.
An anniversary compared to us. 10 million years in absolute power. That's what it takes to be really
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake.
But it was a childish dream that made you a doctor. You dreamt you could
No
help.
more. I'm not just the title. I'm the last of the title.
It just disappears, doesn't it? Everything you are gone in a moment, like breath on a mirror.
I do what I do because it's right. Because it's decent. And above all, it's kind.
Love abides in the face of everything.
Oh, Corridor of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame. I've stolen the concept and renamed it. It's an adaptation. So, Billy Garratt-John. I'm going to waste no time. We've had some amazing people in the Corridor of Fame. We got, let's see if I can remember them all. Liz Sladen, of course. John Barrowman. Graham Harper. Delia Derbyshire. William Russell. And that's it. That's that. Yeah, we've got 5. We've got 5 people in. So let's make it 6. Who are you submitting to the Corridor of Fame? Bearing in mind, people at home, the doctors are in. They're already in.
Yes.
So, doctors aside, who's going in?
This was really tricky. I had a couple of different names floating around in my head. One of which I think I mentioned earlier, and I can't for the life of me remember who it was that I said. But in any case, it was Derek Sherwin was one idea that I had, just for completely reinventing the show when it needed it, even if people didn't realise it needed it at the time. But Derek Sherwin was one that I was thinking of. But again, going with the Review of Death theme, I decided to go for an unsung hero of the programme.
I like that.
Somebody whose fingerprints are all over the show and have been for decades. One of the few people to cross the barrier, the divide between the classic series and the new series, and whose effect on the show could be felt right from the off when the show came back with Russell. And that person is visual effects and miniature extraordinaire Mike Tucker. Now, Mike, unbelievably, is one of those people who has done so much for the program and is so well known, but he is pretty much never credited for his work.
Well, I've heard the name, but I'm going to be completely ignorant here and say, I don't know a lot about him.
Yeah.
So give me a brief rundown.
So Mike Tucker is a visual effects artist.
Yeah.
And I think he cut his teeth on programs like Doctor Who. He was a Doctor Who fan anyway, I believe. And the first credit, even though he wasn't really credited for it, as far as I'm aware, it's the earliest credit I can find anyway, is on Delta and the Bannerman. And he basically worked on the show as a visual effects assistant on Delta and the Bannerman, Silver Nemesis, Greatest Show in the Galaxy, The Curse of Fenric, and Survival, all of which he's uncredited for.
Yeah.
And he had a massive, massive part in, I think, the show. We were talking about that visual consistency with videotape and so on. I think he's a massive part of that show at that point in history, looking so consistently good. And he's never really credited for it. He was also a visual effects designer for Dimensions in Time, so there's that. He's got that to his name. And also for Doctor Who fans from a certain era who bought the DVDs as they were coming out, the first time. Sometimes they were hidden on DVDs, sometimes they were advertised. But there was a run of adventures, in inverted commas, called TARDIS Cam. I don't know if you've heard about that, Josh.
Rings a bell.
So basically,
I believe
the TARDIS
I have
cams,
heard of this before.
You may have seen it around and about. TARDIS cams were basically beauty shots of TARDIS models in various different surroundings. So there's one in an underwater base. There's one on a snowy planet. There's one on a desert planet with a Cyberman helmet. There's a CGI one of the TARDIS going through the vortex. But this is all stuff that's coming out just as the show is creeping into the 21st century. It hasn't come back yet. But for so many people, considering that they were on classic series DVDs, they were the only new Doctor Who things that were coming out that were visual. There's the TARDIS. That has been shot in the last year. There is a model TARDIS. Somebody's put so much care and love and effort into these shots of model landscapes with a TARDIS on it. They are so worth checking out, honestly. They're absolutely beautiful. And Mike was the visual effects designer for those. And I kind of feel like they were his baby, really. He was also, coming into the new series, responsible for one of the most played segments in the new series history, which is, of course, the Slovene ship crashing into Big Ben. He was responsible for that model shot.
Right.
He's responsible for basically most of the model shots that you see in the show. But he now isn't credited individually. He's now credited under a company he owns called the Model Unit. And the Model Unit, I think, still do all of the models for Doctor Who. They're one of the only specialist miniature places for modelling for film and TV in the UK. If not the world. The only other place I can think of is Weta in New Zealand.
Yeah, I've heard of Weta,
And, he worked on Red Dwarf. He did all the beautiful shots of, the Red Dwarf and Starbug and, Blue Midget and all that amazing model work that you see on Red Dwarf. But he was also a writer, and he was also one of the few people that kept the show alive during that Wilderness Years period that ended up working on the show. So I've got a list of them here, and I've read a lot of these, and they are all worth picking up. For the past Doctor Adventures, he wrote a fantastic book called Illegal Alien, which was actually a script he submitted, which was rejected.
I've heard of this story.
It's the Cybermen in World War II Blitz, London.
Yeah, I've heard of this. Yeah.
And it's great. It's so much fun, and it's sort of prototypical of a lot of Cyberman body horror that you get sort of later down the line. It's absolutely fantastic. Matrix, Storm Harvest, Prime Time. What he would do as well is he would have models in his he'd be working on in his spare time, and they would have been prototypes for what we could have done if Doctor Who was being made in the 90s and you gave us a bit of money. This is what the monsters could have liked.
Yeah.
And so on the cover for Storm Harvest, which I encourage everybody to look at because it's pretty gruesome, the alien he's conceived of there, I think they're called husks or something in the story. He designed those monsters, and Doctor Who fans of a certain age would have definitely seen it and will definitely recognise it. And he also wrote some of the new series books as well. So I've got here, he wrote The Nightmare of Black Island, which I think is a 10th Doctor and Rose book. Snow Globe 7, The Crawling Terror, which I think is a Capaldi one, and Diamond Dogs, which is also a Capaldi one. So he's always been there. He's always been there buzzing around in the background within the ethos of Doctor Who. He wrote the first, I believe, let me just double check, I think it was the first Dalek story for Big Finish. No, it was the second. The mutant phase was the first. He wrote the second Big Finish Dalek story, The Genocide Machine, which is absolutely fantastic. It's a really, really, really great script. And yeah, I think that he is somebody that ought to be given an awful lot more kudos and praise for what he's given to the show over the years. And one of the coolest things, I think, is he won a BAFTA for his model work on Day of the Doctor, which was thoroughly deserved. Great. Yeah. And if you want to have a look at some of his stuff online, if you type Mike Tucker Doctor Who in, there's a lovely pair of interviews done by the lovely Luke Spallan at BBC Studios, where he talks with Mike about the restoration of some monsters for the Doctor Who experience in Cardiff, which obviously is no longer with us now, and also other model work that he's done for the show. So there's a segment about the TARDIS crashing through the Daleks in Day of the Doctor and the No More segment there. So that obviously that TARDIS model was a miniature, and he shot that, and there's a fantastic feature about that online. So yeah, there's this Mike Tucker is my pick to go in the corridor of fame.
Yeah, that is an amazing pick, because it's the first proper. Like obviously, the first three we had, the first four we had four absolute icons, John Barrowman, Liz Sladen, and William Russell, obviously iconic companions from the show. And then, we had Graham Harper, legend. If you say the words Doctor Who and director in the same sentence, Graham Harper is probably soon after. And then Delia, who I'd say was at one point in that unsung hero mould, and now thankfully, she gets that credit that she deserves. But yeah, that's such a good pick. Because this is one of the reasons why I started this, is so I can learn about people like this, and hearing you talk so passionately about it is great. And yeah, I wasn't aware. You hear these names around. There's so many people involved in the show, that it's hard for everyone to get the credit that they deserve. Especially now, when. The show's been around for so long. Like, this is the list of people who've worked on it is immense.
But... And also, like, stuff like, it's so easy now to go onto your computer and, you can render out a CG animated sequence on your laptop in, 20 minutes to half an hour, just with a click of a couple of buttons and some assets. But to craft a miniature, to make sure that everything is properly to scale, that even scratches and indentations don't look too big. To film everything at the right speed so it gets the right weight behind it and stuff. It's just phenomenal. It's so fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's a testament to him and his work that, when you say the words model work to me about Doctor Who, my brain just goes, what model work?
Yeah, that is sort of the job of it. Really,
I'm like, I can't think of one moment where there's models other than, some TARDISes. And then obviously you mentioned that scene in Aliens of London which is the it's just like,
I mean, like, he was responsible for building the new Dalek Emperor that appeared in the Series 1 finale with the you know, and animatronic work, and, you know, I think he actually, if he didn't build it, I think he might have built parts of it, but he was responsible for part of the Dalek redesign in 2005 too, taking molds from existing Daleks and whatnot, and kind of bringing that stuff forward. But you know, I remember watching, I think it was Cold War, and there's the segment with the submarine gets beached on some rocks, and the rock starts shifting and the submarine starts sort of moving. And I went, I mean, maybe it wasn't that effective because I realised it was a model, but I went, it's a model! Oh my god, amazing! Brilliant! I love models. I love seeing models. It's one of those childhood things where you just think somebody's built a spaceship and they're flying it around on strings,
really
and there's
cool.
real explosions, and it's reacting in real time and stuff like that. You know, I love it. So, yeah.
Yeah, great pick. Mike Tucker, we salute you.
Absolutely.
What a legend. And I'm definitely going to be doing more research into Mike's work. I hope you all are too, because he deserves some props. Put some credit on that. Big up. Wonderful. We're going to say bye now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's been an absolutely wonderful time. I just have one last question, which I ask everybody. In a sentence, what does Doctor Who mean to you?
Doctor Who literally means everything to me. Semicolon, so it's still a sentence. It means my work, my spare time, my life, and the first thing I fell in love with. So Doctor Who is absolutely everything to me.
Lovely. I always love the answers to that question. It's been an absolute pleasure. Now is your time to plug what you want to plug.
Okie dokie.
Plug away.
I will plug. I've got something to plug. People always ask me if I do a podcast. Plug away, and it's like, I've got nothing, just follow me on Twitter. So
I've got a big thing to plug.
You can follow me on Twitter at Garratt-John, GARRATTJOHN. I know you were impressed with me doing that last time, so I thought I'd do it again.
Oh, it sounds so smooth. It just rolls off the tongue.
It really doesn't feel like it when I'm saying it, but it does sound quite good. I've got Dark Dimension, Doctor Who Dark Dimension, from my zero budget audio visual production company, Prowess Features. That's coming out part 1 Saturday the 23rd of January, and then every Saturday for 3 weeks afterwards. Go and follow at Pharos Features, PHAROS Features, all one word, for up-to-date information on that, and posting artwork all the way through the release of it. There's something hopefully very, very exciting coming out, or has already come out, the week that Dark Dimension is scheduled to start releasing. I thank you very much, Josh, for having me. Thank you very much for allowing me to talk about Dark Dimension. I also do the Review of Death with Matthew Toffolo. You can follow that on Twitter at the Review of Death, and on YouTube as well. And then the Authenticators, that will hopefully start recording again in the next couple of months, and we'll have Series 1 will start properly in 2021, so you can follow Pharos Features or the Newplex for that stuff.
Exciting. Dark Dimension, Review of Death, and the Authenticators. All solid gold content.
I hope so.
Amazing stuff. And as always, you can follow me personally at Josh Ryan Carr on Twitter, or you can follow the podcast at Who Knew Podcast. We're on Instagram as well, Who Knew DWPod. I'm really behind on the Instagram. I'm going to have to spam like a load of pictures.
I did have a look at it the other day. I was like, you stopped after that person, whoever it was. I can't remember who it was. But...
Yeah, there's a lot to this stuff, and it fell behind. Sorry, guys. So if you follow that, I will spam and get up to date, and then I will post regularly on it. And then you can listen to the podcast. It's on all good podcast platforms, and if it's not on a podcast platform, it's because it's not a good podcast platform, people.
It is not worthy of Who Knew.
No, it's not. But yeah, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you look, it should be there. And go and listen to the other episodes. We've had some amazing guests on, and we've got some amazing guests coming on. And thank you for listening. And here's to 2021. Let's make it an average one, because that would be an improvement.
It can't be any worse.
It can't. No. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Who Knew, a Doctor Who podcast. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes every week. And if you can leave us a review, it would really help us out. And a big thank you to the Sononauts for providing cover of the Doctor Who theme as the theme tune for the podcast.